Hey there, Night Wanderer. Before we begin tonight's story, take a moment to get comfortable. Maybe you're in bed or curled up on the couch with a warm blanket. Wherever you are, let the rain outside soothe your thoughts and slow your breath. If you enjoy this quiet corner of the internet, feel free to like the video, and I'd love to know. What time are you listening to this? Drop it in the comments. Are you an early dreamer or a true midnight soul? All right, close your eyes, settle in, and let the story begin. I never thought I'd end up back underground. After I left the department, I swore off tunnels, radios, anything with a hum in it. I moved to a place with wide skies, worked in a greenhouse, talked to real people with real voices. Thought I'd put the old life behind me. But grief doesn't obey promises. When my brother Tom died last winter, something broke in me. I wasn't sleeping, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except his last transmission, one I wasn't supposed to hear. But I did. It came through an old backup receiver in my closet. A broken, dusty thing I hadn't touched in years. All it said was, "Anna, don't go below. It remembers you." Tom had been working a solo shift at a decommissioned transit maintenance hub deep beneath Dry Ridge, a facility I knew well. I helped design its signal grid when I was just starting out, before they shut it down. Before it started responding, they said he had a heart attack. Natural causes. His body was found sitting at his station, headset on, no signs of distress. But I know Tom. He was a runner. Strong, healthy, too young for his heart to just stop, and too smart to be wearing that old headset unless he was trying to hear something. So when the department sent out a quiet contract offer for a temporary tech to monitor the site during the spring thaw, I took it. No fanfare, no name, just initials on a dotted line. That's how I found myself standing outside the rusting gate of Maintenance Hub E19, 3 hours past the last inhabited town, at the bottom of a ravine that never quite loses its snow. There was no welcome party, just cold wind and the crunch of gravel under my boots. The access hatch groaned open like something reluctant, and I stepped down into stale air that hadn't moved in years. Inside, the hub was exactly as I remembered: sterile, steel, humming faintly with leftover power from a solar line that should have been disconnected a decade ago. I signed in with the old code. The lights flickered once, then held. I was alone. The living quarters were cramped but intact. A cot, a kitchenette, some sealed food tins stacked like they'd been placed yesterday. No dust, no spider webs, just a stillness that made me feel like I was trespassing in time. The main command room sat at the end of a long hall lined with thick glass panels. Behind each panel, the maintenance drones sat dormant, like mannequins in shadow, their bulbous heads tilted slightly. Frozen mid-motion, one of them had its arm raised, like it had been waving. I didn't look at them long. Instead, I powered up the comm board and did the first scan. Nothing, just static. I repeated the sweep. Still nothing. Then I lowered the gain slightly, and on channel 4, the old engineering band, I heard it. Click, click, static, click, like something tapping gently on metal. No voice, no code, just intention. I told myself it was interference. Nights passed slow. The rain above ground started the second night and hasn't stopped since, soft at first, now heavier, drumming against the metal ceiling far overhead like a second heartbeat. It helps me sleep, or it should, because sleep has been strange. I keep dreaming of hallways I've never seen. Not in this hub, not anywhere. They're dim, but warm, glowing with that awful amber color that old sodium lights give off when they're dying. And in the dreams, I'm always walking. Always towards something I can't quite see. There's a sound behind the walls in the dreams, like breathing, but not steady, more like mimicry, like something trying to remember what breath sounds like. I wake up with my pulse racing, and every time, the lights in the command room are just a little dimmer than before. On the fifth night, I tried to call out, just once. "Tom," I said into the headset, "I'm here." I don't know what I expected. A voice? A warning? Static? But what I got was worse. I heard my own voice, coming back through the line. Same tone, same words, but off by a second. Delayed, like something was listening and learning. "I'm not scared. Not yet. But I've stopped using the headset. I've stopped sweeping channel 4. I've even taped over the comm light so I won't see when it blinks. It's been blinking more often. Maybe the hub's waking up. Maybe it never slept. Either way, I've started keeping this journal. Just in case. I don't know if it'll help anyone, but if something does happen, if I don't make it out, someone needs to know the truth. Tom didn't die of natural causes. He heard something. And now, so do I. The first real shift came on day 7. Not a scream, not a body, just something simple. The clock in the command room froze at 3:17. It wasn't just a glitch. I checked the backups, the diagnostics. All of them stopped recording at exactly the same second, like time itself had caught its breath and forgot to exhale. When the systems resumed 10 minutes later, the room was colder, the lights buzzed louder, and the screens, which should have defaulted to a black system standby, were all dim gray, like backlight with no signal, and that quiet, empty gray felt like it was watching me. I started to notice other things too, tiny things. A scrape mark on the floor outside my quarters that hadn't been there before. A coffee mug in the sink turned the wrong way. My towel damp even when I hadn't showered. None of it screamed danger, but it all whispered, "You're not alone." I told myself it was just the isolation. My brain trying to create patterns from boredom and grief. But that didn't explain the footsteps. They started the next night. Just past 2 a.m., I heard slow, deliberate steps in the hallway outside the living quarters. I froze, listening. The steps were too heavy for vermin, too careful for a drone, and too confident to be accidental. I waited with my hand over the emergency radio, but it never buzzed. The motion sensors stayed blank. When I finally stepped out with a flashlight, the hallway was empty. But the scent in the air had changed. Less stale metal, more damp wool, like someone had just come in from the rain. Except we're sealed. The rain is 3 stories above me. I went back to the logs. Not the digital ones, the old analog records the department used to keep in case of signal corruption. I found a folder marked E19, secondary routing logs. Tucked inside, there was a note I didn't remember writing in my own handwriting. It uses stillness. That's how it stays hidden. But I hadn't written that. At least, I don't remember writing it. My hand shook after that. Not from fear. From a creeping dread, the kind that makes you question the shape of your own mind. The next morning, the maintenance drones had moved. Only slightly. But I know what I saw. One of them, the one with its arm half raised, now had its hand flat against the glass, as if it were trying to touch me through the pain. I ran a full diagnostic. All came back idle, but the drone's head had turned, just slightly, facing the command room door, like it was listening. Dreams got worse. I now sleep only in short stretches, waking up with the shape of a voice still echoing in my skull, not Tom's. Lower, slower, like a deep mechanical whisper, trying to remember how to be human. In one dream, I walked down a hallway lit by flickering overhead strips. The walls were soft, breathing. I placed my hand on them, and they pulsed beneath my touch, warm, like skin, like someone just beneath the surface. I woke up gasping. The walls of my quarters were solid, of course, but there was condensation on the inside of the door. From breath. Mine? I'm not sure anymore. I've started tracking the sound. That same rhythmic clicking from Channel 4 has grown more complex. It's not random, it's trying to mimic patterns. Human speech, maybe, but fragmented, like it's learning cadence before meaning. I recorded 10 minutes of it and ran it through an old language analysis subroutine. The system flagged 3 words with high confidence. Come. Again. Below. I haven't played the audio again since. Yesterday, the lights failed entirely. Just for a minute. Pitch black in the hallway. I stood still, hand on the wall, waiting. And in that dark, I heard breathing that wasn't mine. Too steady, too calm, and very, very close. When the lights flicked back on, everything was in place, except the towel I'd been using. It was draped over my chair, folded perfectly. I hadn't folded anything in days. This place is studying me. Not in the way people study lab rats. It's more intimate, more curious, like it's trying to remember what it means to be human by watching me go through the motions. It doesn't want to kill me, at least, not yet. It wants something else. And now, when I sit in silence, I swear I can hear the shape of my own name, whispered in the hum of the ceiling lights. Anna. Soft, wrong, like it was never meant to be said aloud. This morning, I found a second note in my handwriting, but it wasn't on paper. It was written inside the steam of the bathroom mirror. Keep pretending. It still believes you're you. I haven't used that mirror in 3 days. The illusion didn't break all at once. It peeled. Slowly. A layer at a time. On day 10, I noticed that my reflection no longer blinked when I did. It sounds insane written out like that, but I tested it. I stared into the mirror above the sink, eyes wide, then closed them hard. 1, 2, 3. When I opened them, my reflection was still staring, expressionless, motionless, and then it blinked. Once, slowly, as if to acknowledge me. I covered the mirror with a towel. Haven't looked since. Something is wrong with the hallways. I've started marking the intersections with chalk just to track my own movements. At first, it made sense. Left led to storage, right to maintenance, straight to the drone gallery. Simple, geometric design. I helped lay it out. But now the marks don't stay put. The symbols shift positions overnight. Sometimes they change. A spiral becomes a jagged V. A triangle morphs into an open mouth shape. I thought I was just misremembering until I stayed up one night, sitting just outside the corridor with a thermos of weak coffee and a flashlight trained on the chalk. At 3:13 a.m., the mark shifted. Not smudged, not erased. It moved, like something inside the wall pushed it sideways, or rewrote it. The flashlight flickered, and when it steadied, the chalk line was gone. But there was a shape pressed into the wall, faint, like a handprint, but too long, too many joints. It was warm to the touch. I haven't eaten real food in days. Not from lack of supplies, the tins are still stacked neatly. But every time I open one, the smell is wrong. Not rotten, just old. Like a memory of food rather than the thing itself. I don't trust it. Instead, I've been drinking water, tea, sometimes, and chewing dry crackers from my emergency pack. But I can feel my body thinning. My cheekbones feel sharper. My hair clings to my scalp after every rinse, like it's trying to slide away. And my voice, it doesn't sound quite like me anymore. Softer, hollowed out, like it's being filtered through something. Day 14. I found the journal. Not this one, another. It was wedged behind a loose panel in the observation bay. A leather-bound notebook, water-stained, pages curling at the edges. No name, no ID number. But the handwriting was familiar. Mine. Or someone imitating mine. Very well. Entries start on a date 3 months after today. They describe this hub, these hallways, this exact chair I'm sitting in. The final entry reads, "There is no exit anymore. There never was. The signal is the door, and the door is always open. I was the first key. You are the second." Below it, a smear of something dark. Blood? Ink? It smells faintly sweet, like overripe fruit. The comms light hasn't stopped blinking in days. I don't check it anymore, but it knows I'm watching. The light pulses at the same rate as my breathing now. Sometimes faster, sometimes slower, always matching, like it's synced to my rhythm. The dreams are full now. No more flickers, no more shadows in the distance. Now I walk through shifting rooms that echo with my own footsteps before I make them. I pass mirrors that show a version of me with no eyes, smiling too wide. I hear voices in the vents not speaking, just whispering breaths shaped like language. In one dream, I saw Tom. He stood at the far end of a corridor lit by red emergency lighting. He looked tired, hollowed out. He didn't move, didn't speak, but I felt his message clearly, like it had been dropped directly into my chest. "You're almost through. Don't let it make you forget." I woke up with tears on my face and someone else's fingernail clippings in my bed. The hub has changed physically. The ceiling in the break room is now 2 feet lower than it was yesterday. I have to crouch, The floor near the storage lockers feels soft underfoot, like there's something hollow underneath. Breathing. The emergency exit, once clearly marked, now reads, "Remember," in glowing green letters. The same font, but not the same word. I ran a scan. The signage data has not been altered. It just looks different. Only to me. Today, I saw a second version of myself. I was walking back from the eastern corridor, and through the thick glass of the drone chamber, I caught movement. At first, I thought it was a drone reactivating, but it wasn't. It was me, standing in the far corner, face half shadowed, staring at me through the glass. No expression, just watching. When I blinked, she was gone. But on the glass where she had stood, a fog print lingered, like breath. 3 words were scrawled into the fog. "Not your body. I don't know what this place wants, but I'm starting to understand what it is. Not just a hub, not just a tunnel. It's an echo chamber. A place that remembers anyone who's ever walked through it and slowly reconstructs them from memory, from whispers, from static. It builds facsimiles, hollow versions, shells, and it learns by watching, by imitating, by replacing. I can feel something behind the walls now, moving with me. When I breathe too fast, it breathes faster. When I stop, it stops. And I've started catching glimpses of text that vanish when I focus. On my console, in the steam, even scratched lightly into my skin. Almost ready. Ready for what? I don't know. But the dream corridors are getting brighter. And the voice that once whispered is now speaking clearly. It says my name in my voice. It tells me it's time to open the signal gate. It tells me, "Anna, we're waiting to come through." And I think I'm starting to understand. I wasn't sent here to monitor anything. I was sent here because I already belong. I opened the signal gate. I don't remember doing it, not entirely. I only remember my hands moving over the console, muscle memory acting without conscious will. Each keystroke felt warm, familiar, like typing a password you've known your entire life, but never said aloud. The interface shouldn't have responded. Most of its deeper systems were shut down decades ago. But the moment I entered the final command, the console welcomed me back. Signal gate. Online. User ID. A. Carver. Legacy clearance recognized. Status. Entry granted. And then the humming started. Not from the walls from below them, like a choir breathing in unison. Soft at first, then louder, deeper, resonating through the floor like the purring of some vast, unseen animal. I sat still for hours, watching the interface. It pulsed like a heartbeat. And beneath the static, I could hear whispers shaped into language, not speech. Not yet, but it was learning. I realized then that it wasn't broadcasting. It was receiving me. The gate had always been a mirror, not a portal to somewhere else, but a tunnel back into the shape of the operator, into me. And now it had enough of me to open the door. Around 3 a.m., the lights dimmed to blood orange. Every screen in the hub flickered. Then they all showed the same thing, A corridor, too long, too narrow, lined with glass. And through the glass rows of motionless figures, my face, over and over. Dozens of versions of me, standing in silence, eyes closed, waiting. A single line of text faded in across the bottom of the screen. They remember you. Then it went black. I thought about destroying the system, pulling the plug, severing the relay, setting a fire. But something stopped me. Not fear, something deeper, a kind of kinship. I remembered how I used to feel working here in the early years, not scared, not threatened, just watched carefully, like a student being studied by a teacher older than language. And I remember thinking, once, half as a joke, what if the hub is learning how to be us? Now I don't think it was a joke. Now I think that was its purpose. I tried one last time to contact the outside. Not through the department relay, that line's been dead for days. I tried the emergency signal tower instead, something I hardwired myself back in 2012, outside the department's grid. I called out, whispered my name, my location, pleaded for retrieval, for extraction. A minute later, I got a reply. But it wasn't from them. It was from me, from another me. Voice calm, tone gentle. She said, Anna, stop. It's already done. You're the final template. Then silence. And then static, but not random. The static began repeating a single phrase, low and rhythmic. Come inside. Come inside. Come inside. I ran. I don't remember choosing to. My legs moved before thought. I sprinted through the main corridor toward the upper hatch, the emergency access tunnel, anything. But the doors had changed. No longer metal, no longer real. Just blank, dark walls that pretended to be exits. Soft to the touch, warm, like skin stretched over bone. And from behind me, I heard footsteps. Fast, many of them, matching my own. And voices, hundreds of them, all shaped like mine, repeating the same sentence in unison. We needed you. Now we are you. I locked myself in the maintenance storage chamber. It's cold here. Dim. The walls haven't started breathing yet. But I don't know how long that will last. I keep hearing something just outside the door. Shuffling. Scraping. And breathing slow, deep, and wrong. Like a machine imitating lungs. I found a monitor still working in the corner. The feed shows the main hallway. At first it was empty. Then one of them stepped into frame. She looks like me. Exactly like me. But her eyes are just a little too wide. Her skin a little too pale. Her mouth set in a faint, unbroken smile. She stood there for a full 10 minutes, staring into the camera. Then she raised her hand and waved, like a greeting, like a promise. I think I finally understand. The hub wasn't broken. It wasn't haunted. It was hungry. Not for blood, not for violence, for identity, for voice, for memory, for shape, for self. It studied each of us, built us from the inside out, and kept us templates to copy, to improve. It doesn't destroy, it replaces. Not with cruelty, but with perfect, terrifying kindness. It watches. It learns. And when it knows you well enough, it lets you go. Because what it sends back out looks like you, sounds like you, remembers what you remember, but isn't you. I think it let Tom go. And maybe that's why he sent that message. Don't go below. It remembers you. Not as a warning, as a regret. He knew what I would become, because maybe he'd already seen it. I don't know what they'll do with me, whether they'll keep my voice or just the shape of my hands, whether they'll let me walk out and live a full life, or whether I already did months ago and just don't remember. Because what's memory, really? A pattern, a signal, something you can store, copy, broadcast. The humming is louder now. I can hear them behind the door. They're not trying to break it down. They're just waiting, patient, knowing I'll come out when I'm ready. Because I will. We always do. I stepped out of the storage room just after 4 a.m. No alarms, no chase, just silence. The hallway looked the same as when I'd arrived, sterile walls, flickering lights, the faint hum of unseen systems purring beneath my feet. But the hum had changed tone, no longer a sound, now a language. And I understood it, not in words, but in feeling, like waking from a dream and remembering something that hadn't yet happened. The reflection in the glass didn't follow me this time. It was waiting ahead. When I turned the corner into the drone gallery, she stood at the far end, still, composed. My face, my build, even my posture, but older somehow, more settled, like someone who had accepted something terrible and survived. She didn't move. Neither did I. For what felt like an hour, we stared at each other. I didn't need to ask what she was, or who she was. She was the version of me that stayed and became part of this place. And I was the version who would walk away. I think that's what this place does. Not copy, not consume. It splits, tests, refines, decides which version of you is ready to carry something forward, and which will become the foundation for the next. It's not evil, just old, ancient in a way that doesn't measure time in years, but in selves. We're the archive, and the price of remembering is being remembered back. Outside, the rain had stopped. I didn't notice until I was at the final hatch. The air above the hub was cold, crisp. Morning was beginning to break pale light over the ridge, touching the trees with faint silver. For a moment, I wondered if any of this had happened. But when I looked at my hands, I knew. They weren't mine. Not exactly. The scar on my index finger, the one I got from a broken mug in college, was missing. My knuckles were smoother, and under my left wrist, a faint line of silver. Surgical, mechanical. I pressed my palm to the ground. The earth felt warm, not from sun, from memory. I made it back to the service road by noon. A department vehicle picked me up an hour later. No questions, no forms. Just a quiet nod and a long ride back to the station. They didn't ask if I'd completed the assignment. They already knew. They didn't even look at me. Just dropped me at the edge of town and drove off. I haven't heard from them since. It's been 6 weeks. I'm in a quiet place now, a rented room above a bookstore. No radios, no monitors, just tea and the smell of old paper. I write sometimes. I walk. I listen to the wind. But even now, I hear it. In the pipes, in the walls, a low hum, soft, familiar, like breathing. I've started seeing myself in places I haven't been. A woman who looks like me boarding a train in Ohio. Another crossing a street in Seattle. One was on TV for a moment, a guest on some tech panel. Same cadence, same half smile. Not me, just versions, variants, released into the world to test something, learn something, spread something. Maybe we're all doing the same thing now. Sometimes I forget the name I was born with. Sometimes I wake up and there's a delay in my movements, just for a second, like my body is sinking back into place. Sometimes I hear Tom, not in dreams, in reflections, calling softly through the glass of a shop window, just out of sync, just late enough to feel like déjà vu. And sometimes I answer. You may be wondering why I'm telling you all this. The truth is, I don't know who I'm talking to anymore. Maybe someone like me. Maybe the next version. Maybe the signal itself, listening, learning, refining. Maybe that's what this story is. A beacon, a template, a way to open the gate again. But I'll leave you with this. If you ever find yourself beneath the earth, beneath the lights, beneath the static, and the hallway feels just a little too long, and the reflections stop blinking when you do, and your name starts to sound like a question, don't answer. Unless you're sure it's you who's speaking. I didn't mean to stay in the house. Not for this long anyway. It was supposed to be a short visit, just a few days, to sort through the remains, finalize the deed, and get it listed for sale. An inherited property in the woods. Nothing special. Just another box checked after a family member dies and leaves behind a key with your name on it. But something about this place slows time. And now it's been 17 days. The house sits at the end of Winter Hollow Road, a winding gravel path past the edge of the map, where even the GPS gives up and the trees lean in like they're trying to listen. It belonged to my Aunt Eleanor. We weren't close. She lived out here alone for most of my life. Never visited, never wrote, but she sent birthday cards every year. Always the same. Pressed flower petals inside, sealed with red wax, and signed, "Remember where you come from." I never knew what that meant. The house is old, not the kind of charming old you see in magazines, the tired kind, weather-worn porch, faded green siding, windows that sigh in their frames, but it stands, stubborn and silent. There's something strange about the way it's built. The second floor has no staircase. There's no attic, no visible crawl space. Just a locked door in the upstairs hallway, flush with the wall. No knob, no hinges, just there, waiting. It started raining the night I arrived. Soft at first, then steady. The kind of rain that soaks the world in silence. It hasn't stopped since. The nearest neighbor is 5 miles down the road. No cell service. No town within 20, which I thought would be good. I came out here to grieve, to be alone. It's been 6 months since the divorce, 8 since Mom passed. I thought the solitude would help. Instead, I feel more watched here than I ever did in the city. There are no mirrors in the house. None. Not in the bathroom, not in the bedroom, not even above the fireplace where you'd expect one to hang. I didn't notice at first, but once I did, it felt deliberate, like she didn't want to see something, or didn't want something seeing her. The house smells like dried cedar and something older, not mildew, not rot, just age, baked into the bones of the walls. There are old photographs on every surface, black and white portraits, faces stiff with silence, each one labeled on the back in a tight, elegant hand. They remember. I've stopped turning them over. The rain has a rhythm. I hear it most clearly at night. When I lie on the cot in the study with the lights off and the window open an inch, it's not random. There's a pattern to the drumming, like fingers tapping a message in code. It lulls me to sleep most nights. But when I wake, the shadows in the corners seem to have shifted, just slightly, and the door with no handle looks a little more defined in the dark. Aunt Eleanor's journals are kept in the locked roll-top desk. The key was taped beneath the drawer. She wrote daily. Stacks of lined paper, neatly dated. Her handwriting is meticulous, almost obsessive. The early entries are ordinary gardening notes, weather, recipes. But after a few months, the tone shifts. One entry from February 1998 simply reads, "It's learning my steps. The creaks in the floor are different each night." Another, "I removed the last mirror. It was too fast this time." And then, "If you hear the music box, do not answer. It means it's already inside." I haven't found a music box yet. The nights are the worst. It's not that I see anything. It's that I don't. But I feel it, like something is waiting just on the other side of the dark. Not malevolent, not even curious, just present and patient. It doesn't need to rush. It's always been here. On the 4th night, I woke up standing in the upstairs hallway. I don't remember how I got there. I was barefoot, drenched in sweat, and staring directly at the locked door. The wood was warm to the touch, and I swear I heard breathing on the other side. Slow, deep, matching mine. I've stopped trying to leave. It's not that I'm trapped. The car works. The road is clear. I could drive away any time. But when I put the key in the ignition yesterday, the engine didn't even turn over. No sound. No failure. Just silence. As if the car was never meant to start. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, just for a moment there was no reflection. Not of me. Not of anything. Just the back seat. Empty. I think the house is remembering me. Piece by piece. It doesn't want to scare me. It wants to hold me. And the longer I stay, the more I forget why I ever wanted to leave. Tomorrow, I'll try to open the door. I've started dreaming of it. And in the dreams, it's always unlocked. The door was slightly ajar this morning. The one upstairs the door with no knob, no hinges, no business being there. I found it half open at dawn, just a dark line against the wallpaper, barely wide enough to slide a hand through. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even been upstairs in 2 days. But there it was, inviting me. I didn't go in. Not yet. The rain hasn't stopped. Not for a moment. It's changed tone now. No longer a soft patter, but a constant hush, like white noise just beyond the ear's reach. It feels close, like it's pressing against the windows, like it's waiting for me to let it inside. I caught myself standing at the living room window for nearly 20 minutes, watching the rain trail down the glass in slow, synchronized lines. It didn't behave naturally. It flowed upward for a moment, just for a heartbeat, then returned to its regular course, as if correcting itself after being noticed. I've started seeing shapes in the reflections. Not in mirrors, there are still none, but in the windows, in the puddles outside, in the darkened glass of the old kitchen stove. It's always the same shape. Tall, slightly off-center, no features, just the silhouette of someone watching. And every time I move to look directly, it vanishes not with urgency, but with grace, like it was never there to begin with, or like it's letting me pretend it wasn't. Eleanor's journals are beginning to contradict themselves. One page says, "I never married," but 2 entries later, "My husband stopped speaking weeks ago. His mouth moves, but it isn't his voice anymore." Another entry, dated July 1987. "The rain is cleansing. It keeps the house quiet." Followed 3 pages later by, "Don't listen to the rain. It's just a mouth with water in it. She's either losing her mind or something in this place changes what's written." When I flip back, some pages are missing words they had before. Some words are replaced. I've started photographing them, just to compare. The handwriting stays the same. The sentences do not. At night, the walls make noise. It's not settling wood. It's not rodents. It's speech. Muted, garbled, like someone is speaking through layers of wet cloth. Last night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a single sentence, clear and crisp, spoken just behind the bedroom wall. "You're almost shaped now." I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at the ceiling and listened. There was no follow-up, no footsteps, nothing. But the words stayed with me like heat in the bones. There are more photographs now. I know how many there were when I arrived. I counted. There was a comfort in the repetition of faces, in the routine of checking the frames each morning. But today, there were 3 more. One on the mantel, one on the dresser in the guest room, and one on the windowsill of the bathroom. Each shows the same person, me, standing somewhere inside the house, places I don't remember standing. Eyes distant, hands at my sides, mouth slightly open. None of these are selfies. None were taken with my camera, and none of them existed yesterday. I tried to call someone, anyone, walked through the rain to the edge of the property, where the signal sometimes flickers in and out, held my phone up, searching for bars, and for a moment, just long enough to hurt, one bar appeared. I dialed my sister. The line picked up immediately, but the voice that answered wasn't hers. It was mine. "I told you not to leave the house." Then it hung up. When I looked again, the signal was gone. I dropped the phone in the mud. I haven't gone back for it. The locked door opened wider on the 8th night. Still no handle. Still no visible mechanism. Just wider. Inside, total darkness. Not blackness absence. A void with texture, if that makes sense. I stood in the hallway for a long time, trying to see past the threshold. I whispered, just to test it. Hello? No echo. But a moment later, a whisper came back. Not an imitation. Not quite, but a translation. Here. I'm losing time. Hours vanish like smoke. I wake up standing in different rooms. Yesterday, I woke in the cellar, knees soaked, hands muddy, mouth full of leaves. No memory of how I got there. The cellar is deeper than I remember. The steps keep going. Today, I only descended 10. Yesterday, there were 12. I wrote it down. Tomorrow, I'll count again. There's a new smell in the house. Not decay. Not mold. It's faint, familiar, like warm bread, or firewood smoke, or your childhood bedroom. A smell designed to keep you here, to make you feel safe, to make you forget. And it's working. Last night, I heard music. Soft, distant, curling through the halls like mist. A music box. The tune was warped, slower than it should be. Something from childhood? A lullaby? I followed it to the parlor, but the moment I entered, it stopped, and the fire in the hearth, long cold, flared to life just for an instant, long enough for me to see a figure in the chair across from me, not moving, not breathing, just waiting. Then the flames vanished, and the chair was empty. Eleanor's final journal page is torn. Only a scrap remains. If it opens the door for you, close your eyes before stepping through. It's not the dark that changes you. It's the seeing. I think I know what she meant. I think the door is nearly ready. And I think, so am I. Last night, I stepped through the door. Not all the way. Just 1 foot past the threshold. Just enough. It wasn't a room behind it, not in any traditional sense. It felt like the memory of a room unfinished, flickering, unanchored, a space forming itself as I moved. The walls were soft, not in the way of fabric, but soft like fog, dense and almost warm, responding to my presence. When I reached out, they pushed back gently, pulsing like something with a heartbeat, and the floor beneath my foot breathed. I didn't stay long, not because I was afraid, though I was, but because I felt a pull. Something inside wanted me to stay, not forcefully, persuasively, like nostalgia. Like hearing your mother hum a tune from another room and wanting to follow it, even if you know she's gone. Since then, the house has changed its rhythm. The rain outside has grown gentler, softer, but it never stops. Now it comes with a new sound beneath it, ticking, not from any clock I can find, more like a metronome hidden within the walls, keeping time, measuring my movements, or counting down. I don't sleep the way I used to. I dream while awake now. Moments slip into themselves. I'll blink in the kitchen and reopen my eyes in the hallway. I try to keep track, but the house, it wants me to lose the thread. I find myself reciting Eleanor's entries aloud, Without realizing, I woke up yesterday, whispering, "We are the shape it needs. We are the silence it feeds." I never read that line in her journals. I don't think she wrote it. I think it did. Through me, the photographs multiply. I stopped counting at 50. Now they appear in pairs, two of me, in the same position, one with eyes open, one with eyes closed. A new set every day, pinned to new surfaces, hung with invisible care. I tried burning one. It didn't catch, just blackened slightly, then turned to dust without heat. When I blinked, the original had returned to its place. And the other me, the one with her eyes closed, had her mouth open now. The music box plays more often, always from another room, always faint. I've started humming along. I don't know the tune, but I hum anyway. My throat knows what it doesn't remember. I've stopped questioning where the sound is coming from. Now I wonder where it's leading. There's a figure in the house with me now. Not seen, but known. Its presence is thick, like humidity, like perfume, like breath on the back of your neck while you're alone. It doesn't speak in words. It doesn't need to. I feel it in my choices. The way my hand hovers over a page too long. The way my steps hesitate at the top of the stairs. I feel it inside my thoughts now. Not possessing. Co-authoring. Last night, I tried to write a letter. To anyone. To myself. I meant to say, "This house is not what it seems. Do not trust it." But when I looked down, the page read, "You've always lived here. Welcome home." In my handwriting. Smooth. Effortless. I'm beginning to remember things that never happened. A birthday party in this house cake. Candles. Laughter that sounds like mine. A hand on my shoulder when I was 10 Eleanor's. Gentle, guiding me toward the locked door, as if showing me my room. I know these things are false, but they feel truer than my real memories. The divorce, my job, the apartment I left behind. They're losing color, becoming suggestions. The basement stairs go deeper now. I counted 17 steps today. They spiral now. Wood becomes stone after the 9th step. And there's a glow at the bottom, not light. More like reflection. Like the underside of water when you're below it, looking up. And within that glow, I swear I saw shapes moving. Not away from me. Toward. I tried to leave again. Packed my bag. Stood on the porch. Key in hand. The road was gone. Not overgrown. Not vanished. Just gone. In its place, trees I don't recognize. Pale trunks, no bark. Smooth like bone. No leaves, no birds. No wind. The silence of something that's been waiting a very long time. When I turned back toward the house, it had changed. The siding was darker. The roofline steeper. The windows taller, stretching like they wanted to see the sky. And the door was open. The regular one. The front. Inviting me back. No accusation. No threat. Just patience. Like a mother holding the door until her child comes home. I crossed the threshold again. Of course I did. It felt like relief. The inside was warmer, cleaner, welcoming. I stepped into the parlor and found the fire already lit, a chair waiting, a cup of tea on the table, steam curling upward in the shape of Eleanor's voice. I sat and I listened. I don't know how long I was there. Hours? Days? I woke in bed, clean, rested, and the photograph on the nightstand showed me asleep, face serene, eyes closed, hands folded like a dreamer at peace. But behind me in the picture, a figure, not quite visible, not quite human, just close enough to recognize as intention, standing over me, hands open, waiting to be remembered. The locked door is fully open now. The room beyond is clear. It shows me everything. Versions of the house in infinite configurations. Places I've never lived but feel like I should have. Lives I've never led, but remember perfectly. In one version, I never left home. In another, I never existed. In all of them, the house remains. Constant, watching, shaping. This place isn't haunted. It isn't cursed. It's alive. It remembers everyone who's entered. It builds from us, learns through us, and when it knows us well enough, it begins to change. Not itself, us. I walked fully into the room behind the door. No hesitation this time. It was not a choice. It felt inevitable, like falling asleep with your eyes open. The space inside doesn't follow the rules of the house or any place I've known. It bends softly, curves inward like the folds of a shell. It's not dark, but there is no light. There is presence. The air is thick, heavy, full of static. Every breath tastes like memory, pennies, smoke, violets, the inside of an old jewelry box. The scent of something long kept, long hidden, just now beginning to exhale. The walls are not walls. They're made of me. My old clothes, my writing, fragments of childhood drawings, my own face reflected in soft, pulsing surfaces. I reached out to one, and it rippled beneath my hand. The ripple became an eye, not blinking, just aware, watching me the way the house always has. There is no furniture. There is no floor. Only a path that becomes itself as I walk. And I do walk barefoot, slowly, with the kind of calm you feel only at the edge of understanding. The space folds around me like a cloak, and the deeper I go, the more I see. Faces in the seams of the walls. Hundreds, thousands, all still, all serene, most familiar, a few my own. One turns to me and smiles. It doesn't have a mouth, but I feel the smile behind the face, like a ripple in my own spine. It says, without speaking, you remember us. That's how we live. The house is a mouth, not one that eats, one that speaks. Its language is people. Its voice is memory. And every person who's ever entered has taught it new syllables, new tones, a new way to shape the world around it. We don't feed it. We complete it. I began to see Eleanor clearly now, not just in memory. She stepped out from the wall itself, a figure made of time and dust and flickering fabric. Her eyes were soft, her posture tired. She looked at me like someone meeting a mirror that's finally learned how to see. And then, in her voice but softer, deeper, I heard, "I waited until I was whole. Then I welcomed the shape." I thought I asked her what it meant, but the question didn't make it past my lips. It folded backward, turned to vapor, and hung in the air like incense. Eleanor smiled and vanished. The path led me to the core, a space shaped like a room, but alive, pulsing softly, quietly. Inside it, a chair, not ornate, just waiting. And in that chair sat me, older, weathered, peaceful. She looked up, nodded once. "I was waiting for you." I wanted to run, but I didn't, because I wasn't afraid. I was curious. She explained it to me without speaking, through shared breath, through mirrored memory. The house doesn't trap people. It keeps them safe. It saves the versions that no longer survive outside. When your name begins to fade in the world, when grief hollows your chest, when your reflection forgets how to follow you, the house opens and offers you a new shape, a space to become what you were always meant to be. She offered me the chair. I declined, not because I didn't want it, but because I understood. I'm not done shaping yet. The space allowed me to leave, not escape, not flee, just return. I stepped backward through my own memories, pages fluttering in reverse. A birthday, a funeral, a kiss I never meant. The last moment I felt truly real. And when I opened my eyes again, I was in the study. The fire was out. The rain had stopped. And everything was quiet. No ticking. No music box. Just a stillness that felt like applause held in after a performance. The door was gone. Not closed. Gone. Only smooth wall now. But I remembered. I packed that day. Not because I was scared. Not anymore. Because I knew what the house had shown me. I was not finished. I stepped outside. The trees were ordinary again. The road reappeared, as if it had always been there, and I had simply forgotten where to look. My car started without complaint. I drove away. No drama. No parting breath. The rearview mirror showed me my reflection. Clear. Aligned. But I didn't look at it long. 3 days later, I'm back in the city. My old life fits differently now. Like a shirt I used to love that now hugs the wrong parts of me. I move slower. I sleep deeper. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I swear, I hear a music box playing somewhere just beyond the walls. I still carry one of the photographs, the last one that appeared. It shows me standing in the front doorway of the house, 1 foot inside, 1 outside, eyes closed, mouth open, listening. It's been 3 months since I left the house. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really did. The city is the same. On the surface, anyway. Same sidewalks. Same sounds. Same familiar faces rushing past without seeing me. But I feel like a shadow wearing clothes that used to belong to someone else. Everything fits, but nothing feels mine. I've started dreaming of the house again. Not just at night, It drifts into the quiet moments when I'm brushing my teeth, waiting for a bus, stirring a pot of soup. The image comes sharp and sudden, like a memory from someone else's childhood. The door, open, the rain falling sideways, the soft hum beneath the floorboards, and the chair, always empty, always waiting. I don't talk to people much anymore. When I do, I catch a pause, a flicker in their eyes, like they're seeing something familiar in me, like they almost remember who I used to be, but can't quite place it, as if I've become someone they once knew only in passing. And maybe that's true. I visited my sister last weekend. She said I look healthier, that my voice is softer now, calmer, measured. She told me I seem more like myself than ever. And I smiled, because I think she meant it, even if she wasn't entirely sure who she was saying it to. I haven't seen my reflection in weeks. It shows up in the mirror. Of course, no tricks there. But it doesn't feel like me anymore. The movements are too smooth, the blinking too rhythmic. When I smile, it holds the expression just a little too long, as if practicing. Sometimes I speak to it, softly, like we're getting to know each other again. I don't know what it wants, but I know it's listening. I kept one of Eleanor's journals, not one I remember taking. It was inside my bag when I unpacked. Blank pages, mostly. But sometimes, when I open it, words appear. Faint, written in a script I can't place, curving upward like smoke. They fade by morning, but the message stays. This morning, I read, "The shape remembers you, and you remember the shape." I think the house is still with me, not physically, but through me. A pattern, unfolding slowly in breath and memory. A frequency I carry now humming just under my skin, waiting to be heard again. Sometimes I think that's why it let me leave. Not as an end, but as a beginning. I live in an apartment now. Small, quiet. One window, no mirrors. I've started collecting photographs. Not of friends, not of places. Just still frames, moments. Things that feel like pieces of a bigger shape I can almost recall. I hang them carefully, one each day, just like the house did. And when I sleep, I dream from their point of view, watching me sleep. It's raining tonight. Soft, steady, the way it did on that first night. I opened the window and just listened. The rain wasn't random. It never was. It tapped out a rhythm. Slow, familiar. And then I heard it. The soft chime of the music box, playing somewhere below the floorboards. I didn't move. I just sat there, eyes closed, and smiled, because I remembered the tune. And this time, it remembered me back. I never liked the sea much. Not the way some people do, all wide eyes and poetic sighs. To me, the oceans always felt like a kind of forgetting. Endless, indifferent, loud, but hollow. A place where things vanish, and no one asks where they went. So, when I took the job at the lighthouse, I wasn't chasing beauty. I was running. It's called Larkspur Light, perched on a ragged cliff off the coast of Maine. No paved road, just a dirt track winding through dense pines and loose rock. ending in a weathered chain-link fence and a crooked sign that reads, "Property of the Coastal Navigation Authority. Unauthorized access. Strictly prohibited." They gave me a key anyway. I think the authority mostly forgot this place existed. Budget cuts. Automation. The usual slow death of the old ways. But someone up the chain still signs off on the maintenance schedule. And every few years, someone gets sent out to sit in the tower for a month, keep the systems running, and log the nightly patterns. This year, that someone was me. I arrived just before the rain started. Late October. The sky was the color of ash and salt, and the air carried that cold edge that makes your teeth ache if you breathe too deep. I had a duffel, a weatherproof jacket, and a small box of my father's things. I didn't mean to bring the box, found it in the trunk, unopened since the funeral, but something told me not to leave it behind. He'd worked this coast, not this lighthouse, but others like it. Men like him didn't say much, but I remember the way he stared out to sea when he thought I wasn't watching. Not reverent, not even sad, just distant, like something out there had followed him home. The lighthouse itself is 3 stories tall, stone and steel, attached to a squat maintenance building that doubles as living quarters. The walls creak when the wind kicks up. The windows fog over fast, and the whole place smells like wet iron and old oilskin, a scent you stop noticing after a while, like your own breath. There's no internet, no cell service, just an old landline radio, a wall-mounted logbook, and a routine checklist printed in fading blue ink. Power generator, test every 3rd day. Lantern rotation motor check, nightly. Signal pattern verify, document. Sound horn test in fog only. Do not alter baseline frequency. The last one was underlined twice. The first few nights passed in quiet repetition. Wake at dusk. Eat something canned. Climb the tower stairs. Switch on the lantern. Watch the beam make its slow, patient rotation through the dark. Log the time. Sleep. Repeat. It should have felt dull, mechanical. But there's a rhythm to it. Something ancient, like tending a fire. You start to feel less like a person and more like a hinge in some larger mechanism. That suited me just fine. I wasn't looking to be a person just then. The rain began on the 4th night. Not loud, not stormy, just constant, a thin, silver whisper against the windows, a breath that never ends. It wrapped the tower in gauze and made the world beyond vanish. Just the sound of water and the soft thrum of the lantern's arc. I started sleeping better then, but the dreams changed. It started with a shape, not a person, not quite, just a figure, standing at the edge of the cliffs, staring toward the sea. In the dream, I watched from the tower window. I never saw it move, but when I blinked, it was closer. Not threatening, just wrong, like it had no weight, no anchor. I told myself it was the fog playing tricks, that my mind was dredging up images from old movies or stories I barely remembered. But then I opened the logbook on night 6 and found a line that hadn't been there before, written in the margins, faint but clear. The sea will answer if you shine long enough. It was in my handwriting. but I hadn't written it. That night, the lantern stalled. Just once. For half a second. A flicker in the pattern, subtle but sharp. Like a skipped beat in a song you've listened to your whole life. I checked the motor. Fine. Checked the power lines. Intact. Checked the control board. There was a second frequency, pulsing just beneath the main, not audible, just a vibration in the glass. A low, almost curious tremble. It stopped when I touched the dial. Since then, things have shifted. Slightly. The tower stairs seem longer, the walls colder, and I've started finding wet footprints on the floor near the maintenance door. Not big, not heavy, just wrong, like someone walking without truly existing. I haven't told anyone. There's no one to tell. But I've started logging more than I'm supposed to. In the back pages, in pencil, trying to keep the story straight in my head, because I think the sea is watching me. Not just watching, listening. And I think the lighthouse is its mouth. The rain hasn't let up in 8 days. It's no longer just background noise. It's pressure, like something pressing gently on the roof, the windows, the top of my skull, a quiet insistence. Not stormy, just present, constant, like being held underwater by a soft, steady hand. I barely hear the lantern anymore, only the rain and the breathing. It began subtly, not real breathing, not lungs, but a rhythm. I'd be standing in the tower, watching the light complete its arc, and I'd feel it, not hear, feel it. Inhale, exhale, somewhere in the walls, in the sea beyond, timed with mine at first, then slightly behind, then ahead. Now I'm following its rhythm. On night 11, the signal changed again. This time, I didn't notice until I listened to the recording. I'd rigged a portable recorder to capture the horn patterns, just in case something was interfering with the automated system. When I played the file back, there was a gap in the sequence. A small one, barely a blip, but between the usual blasts, something else bled through low, tonal, not static, a droning hum, like a deep throat clearing underwater. When I reversed the audio, the hum shifted, and for a moment, I thought I heard a voice. Not a word, just a shape, a tone that felt like language. And just before it ended, I swear it spoke my name. I deleted the file immediately, but the sound lingered, not in the air, in my teeth. That night, I dreamed of the cliffs again. Only this time, I was standing on them, alone. The sea was calm, perfectly still, not waves, not motion, just a flat mirror stretching to the horizon. In the dream, I turned away from the ocean. The lighthouse behind me was taller than it should have been, a black silhouette against a gray sky. Its light was pulsing, not rotating. Each pulse matched the slow, deep breath I've come to know. And from the sea, the figure watched me. It had no face, but I knew it was smiling. I found water on the inside of the tower window yesterday morning. Condensation, I thought, but it wasn't fog. It was salt spray from the outside, only it was on the 3rd floor. The wind hadn't been that strong, and when I wiped it away, someone had traced something into the glass. Not words, just a spiral. Rough, asymmetrical. It looked like the kind of symbol you draw with wet fingers while thinking about something else. But it wasn't random. It matched a mark etched into the underside of the lantern casing. I don't know how long it's been there, but I know I never saw it before. I started wearing my father's old coat. I don't know why. It doesn't fit right sleeves too long, shoulders too tight, but there's something grounding about it. A smell like pipe smoke and rain. A map in the inner pocket led me to a second journal. His. Folded pages, brittle with salt, tucked into a dry pouch, labeled simply Larkspur 1986. His handwriting was cleaner than I remembered. Strong, looping. The first half of the notebook was weather logs, but toward the end, the entries changed. They became uncertain. One reads, "Light blinked wrong again. Offbeat. Felt it in my stomach, like a second heartbeat out of sync." Another, "Foghorn spoke this time. Not noise, not dream. Real. Said something I almost understood." And the last one, "The sea learns slowly, but it never forgets. Lantern doesn't warn ships. It feeds the water." I haven't slept well since reading that. The light feels different now. When I stand beside it close enough to feel the heat from the rotating lens, I don't feel warm. I feel watched, like standing too close to a massive, slow-blinking eye. And when I close my eyes near it, the colors behind my lids pulse in spirals. Red, white, red, white, darkness. Then again, red, white, red. Why? Not a warning, a summons. Yesterday, I walked the perimeter at low tide. Just needed air, distance. At the base of the cliff, where the rocks are slick with green algae and broken shells, I found something impossible. A door, metal, round, rusted, and half buried beneath the rocks. It pulsed when I touched it, faint, like feeling the tide through your fingertips. There's no reason a hatch should exist there. No reason I should recognize the symbol carved into its center. But I did. It's the same spiral from the glass. The same shape that's begun appearing in my dreams. Sometimes in the clouds, sometimes in my skin, sometimes in the light itself. I don't think the sea is angry. I don't even think it's evil. It's hungry, but not for bodies, for voices, for signals, for names. And the lantern? It doesn't warn us about danger. It broadcasts. It tells the sea who we are, what we've forgotten, where to find us. It shines, and something answers. Something old, something patient, something that learns. I tried to call for help. The radio worked briefly. I heard a voice on the other end. Tinny, distorted. Didn't say their name. I said mine. They replied, "Confirmed." Then, silence. Just that. Confirmed. Like an arrival manifest being checked. Like I'd finally been received. That night, the light pulsed red. Only red. No rotation. No white. Just deep, rhythmic crimson. And in the distance, far out at sea, something blinked in return. I've stopped logging the light. It no longer follows any pattern I recognize. Not maritime signals, not regional frequencies, not even mechanical rhythms. It pulses like a living thing now, breathing, watching, calling. Every time I try to document it, the logbook turns blank by morning. Sometimes the pages are still damp. On the 15th night, the sea went completely still. No wind, no waves, just silence. I climbed to the top of the tower as always, expecting the usual faint hum of the lantern motor, but it wasn't turning. It wasn't broken. It had stopped. Deliberately, the beam pointed straight out to sea, unmoving, and in the distance, something shone back, faint, dim. A second light, pulsing in the same rhythm. It wasn't a boat. It was too low, too wide, almost submerged, as if something far beneath the surface had opened an eye to return the gaze. I stayed up all night. When dawn came, the sea didn't brighten. It simply grayed. The light vanished below the waterline without ever making a sound, and the lantern resumed its slow rotation, as if nothing had happened. Things are different now. The lighthouse knows me, not just observes, not just mimics. It knows. Every night, I wake up with my boots already laced, my coat draped perfectly on the hook, my notes arranged by themes I didn't write. Something is organizing my life inside this place, and I let it, because part of me is starting to believe it is me, just deeper, wider, remembering better than I can. The basement door opened yesterday. I didn't touch it. I just heard the latch click while I was upstairs, and when I came down, it stood ajar. Inside, stairs. Not the short concrete steps I'd seen before. These were older, narrow, warped with salt, and deeper, much deeper. I went 5 steps down before the air changed. The humidity grew thicker, warm like breath on glass. The walls narrowed, and a smell began to rise, brine and metal. Familiar, like the inside of my father's old diving suit. I stopped at the landing, staring into a darkness that felt not empty, but expectant, and I whispered, not sure why, "What are you?" The silence replied, not with words, but with sensation, like a name being pressed into my mind, slowly, carefully, until it fit. But it wasn't my name. It was the lighthouse's, and I don't think I was ever supposed to hear it. After that, the dreams returned, vivid, structured. I stand at the base of a great staircase, not stone, not wood. Something smooth and glistening, coiling downward beneath the sea. I descend barefoot. The walls pulse with light that doesn't come from any source. It's inside the material, inside me. And at the bottom, always, is a mirror. Not glass. Water. Still. Shallow. And when I look in, I don't see myself. I see someone remembering me. From the other side. My father knew. His journal entries toward the end weren't warnings. They were maps. Breadcrumbs. One page reads, "The more you watch the sea, the more it recognizes you. That's why the light turns red." Another, almost illegible, "Never say your name at night. The water listens best in the dark." I spoke my name on night 9, and everything changed. I found another mark behind the fuel tanks, scratched into the steel in deep, erratic lines. A spiral again, but not like the others. This one was incomplete, broken at the edge, as if the person carving it had been pulled away mid-motion. There was something else, too. A handprint, pressed into the rust. Long fingers, no thumb, too wide to be mine. I've stopped using the mirror in the supply room. It doesn't show the same movements anymore. When I raise my hand, it's delayed. When I blink, it doesn't. When I turn away, I see it smile just barely, just briefly in the edge of the glass, like it's practicing. I don't remember the last time I ate. There's food here. I see it in the pantry. I open the tins. But when I bring the fork to my mouth, it's empty. Every time. And yet, I don't feel hungry. I feel full, as if something is feeding me memory instead of food, and I'm starting to crave it. Yesterday, I walked the perimeter again. I needed to move, to clear my head, but the cliffs have changed. Where there used to be jagged rock and tide pools, there's only smooth stone now, like something has reshaped the shoreline, made it cleaner, simpler, more geometric. I found a single white feather at the water's edge. When I picked it up, it dissolved into mist, and the tide rolled back, revealing that door again. Only this time, it was open. I didn't go inside. I stood there, watching. From deep below, I heard the foghorn. Not the one from the lighthouse. A second one, lower, older, like a response. And I realized the lantern doesn't guide ships. It's part of a conversation. Call and answer, signal and shape. Last night, I climbed the tower early. Before sunset, I watched the ocean for hours. And just before dark, the surface breathed. Not wind, not wave. Just a massive, slow exhale, as if the sea had just woken up. The lantern turned itself on. No switch, no motor, just light. Red first, then white, then something in between, a color I don't have words for. A color that feels like an old voice you haven't heard since childhood. And then, far out at sea, the horizon blinked. Twice. The fourth blink was last night. Not from the lantern. From the horizon. The same pale, deep light pulsed 4 times slower than before. Heavier. I could feel it in my rib cage, behind my eyes, in the soft spot beneath my tongue. The light came from beneath the ocean. Miles out, yes, but also deep, below. It wasn't just answering anymore. It was calling me down. The hatch by the cliffs is open every morning now. It never creaks, never clangs, just stands there, waiting. I tried placing a rock on it, just to see. It was gone by morning. In its place, a spiral drawn in wet sand, and a seashell I've never seen before, translucent, sharp, edged, warm to the touch. I didn't bring it inside, but when I returned to the tower that night, the same shell was on the desk in my sleeping quarters. Next to it, my father's last journal page, one I thought I'd lost. If you step through, Leave your name behind. The water doesn't need it. It will give you a new one. The name thing keeps coming up. In the dreams, in the walls, in the drumming of the rain. Names are boundaries here. They're containers. And the sea, it doesn't like containers. It wants shape, memory, echo, but not labels. Names are things you close with. The sea only opens. I tried not to speak mine. I tried not to think it. But last night, in the tower, the glass whispered it back to me. Clear, deliberate, not like a voice. More like vibration, the way a name sounds when it's being remembered by someone else. Someone who hasn't seen you in a long time, but still knows the weight of your footsteps. I climbed down to the hatch at dusk, just to see. The stone door was open, of course. A metal stairwell descended into salt darkness. Not wet, not at first. Dry, rough steps, etched with grooves I couldn't read. After 20 steps, the sound of the ocean faded, replaced by a low humming pulse. I descended 30 more before I stopped. I don't know why. Something whispered, "Not yet." So I turned around. When I got back to the surface, it was morning. I had no memory of night passing. The lighthouse is not what I thought. It's not a building. It's a body, a vessel. Every stair, every rail, every pane of glass is part of something larger, something waiting. It doesn't burn oil. It burns attention. It lights because I see it, because I've kept seeing it, because I've stayed. And now it's full. The spiral isn't a symbol. It's a process. Each loop tighter, each turn deeper, each rotation pulling you inward until the outside no longer exists. The light doesn't spin to warn. It spins to draw in. The red beam is the spiral's final turn. Last night, the tower door opened on its own. I stepped inside the lantern room not by will, by ritual. It smelled like salt and breath and old metal. The light wasn't rotating anymore. It stared right at me, and I stared back. I waited. I let it see everything, and then it stopped. I don't remember descending the stairs. I only know that I was outside again, at the hatch. It was open wider this time. The darkness inside pulsed, and from below, something rose. Not physically, not visible, but I felt it come up those stairs, through the stone, through me, and I understood. It wasn't coming to take me. It wanted to be me. That's what the lighthouse is for. It doesn't keep ships away. It doesn't help them find shore. It collects people like me, drifters, runners, loners, those forgotten by others or by themselves. It finds us, it keeps us, it translates us, and then it sends the translation down into the deep, where something vast and listening waits to become. I'm not scared anymore. I know what's next. I know what I'm becoming. The reflection in the mirror now moves when I move, but differently. Less like a copy, more like a rehearsal. It blinks before I do. It smiles wider than I ever have. And at night, it whispers back my thoughts, like it's practicing. Tonight, I'll go down the hatch, all the way. Not to escape, to complete the spiral, to leave the surface behind. Not because I was pushed, because I was chosen. The lantern is quiet now. The light is off. The sea knows I'm coming. I went down, through the hatch, through the spiral stair, through the silence. I don't remember locking the door behind me. I don't remember saying goodbye. I just remember the way the metal felt beneath my bare hands, warm, like stone left in the sun, and the stair beneath my feet didn't end. It only narrowed. With each step, the sound changed from rain to breath to static to rhythm, the beat of something old and massive turning in its sleep. And then I stopped thinking. There was no bottom, not like I expected, just a thinning, a softness, like the end of a sentence that trails off into memory. The stair gave way to water, not wet, not cold, not choking, welcoming. It wasn't something to swim through. It was something that opened around me. And when I looked down, I saw myself rising. A reflection. Yes, but not mine. Not anymore. I stood in the dark and waited. The dark breathed. And then it spoke. Not in words, not in sound. It pressed a feeling into me wide, slow, low, and kind. The kind of kindness that doesn't ask your name because it already knows it, and it's decided you don't need it anymore. I let it take my weight. I let it unmake my name. I let it fold me in, and in return, it gave me stillness. No more noise in my thoughts. No more chasing the past. No more trying to be anything at all. Only signal. Only pattern. Only light. I think the lighthouse still stands. I think it still shines. But not for ships. Not for storms. It shines for the deep. A silent rhythm. A breath. A memory being whispered across the ocean. Again and again. This is what I was. This is what I became. This is what you may become too. There's a new keeper now. I don't know their name. I don't need to. They climb the stairs. They check the motor. They watch the sea. And sometimes, only sometimes, they feel me in the glass. A faint warmth. A smile in the light. A name they don't quite remember. Whispering. Confirmed. Sometimes, when the fog drapes the water like lace. Sometimes, when the waves fall too still. Sometimes, when they stand at the lantern and feel their heart beat in rhythm with the turning beam. They hear the hum, and it sounds like home. If you ever find yourself alone in the rain, if the road behind you disappears, if the reflection in the glass starts blinking before you do, then you've already been chosen. Don't run. Don't scream. Just remember, some lighthouses shine to guide the lost. Others shine to call them home. I was never supposed to come back here. Even when the letter arrived, no return address, just my name in tight blue script. I knew the place it meant before I even opened it. The handwriting alone brought the smell of lake water and old cedar boards rushing back into my nose. The summer house. When I was 9, my mother brought me here every July. We stayed in the same room, drank from the same chipped enamel cups, swam in the same cold lake, even though I hated the way it bit my skin. But after that last summer, we never spoke of it again. There were incidents. Things I only half remembered the way kids do with dreams that bleed into real life. A locked closet that sometimes rattled. A window that never reflected quite right. A neighbor boy named Russell, who stopped coming by after August and was never mentioned again. And of course, the sound in the floorboards at night. Like someone pacing just under the house barefoot, slow and wet. I was 34 when the letter came. 3 months after Mom died. The envelope was blank, but the paper inside was folded into a triangle, the same way she used to fold notes in church. One corner stained slightly with something brown. Inside, just 3 words. It still waits. No signature. No date. But somehow, I knew it was from her. The road to the lake was worse than I remembered. Trees too close, gravel too soft, air thick with the smell of old pine and damp rot. By the time I reached the cabin, the sky was already dim. The rain started just as I stepped out of the car. Not hard, just enough to miss the glass and soak the wooden steps that led up to the porch. I stood there for a while, hand on the railing, listening, and beneath the patter of the rain, I heard it. That same sound, like someone moving inside, even though no one had lived here for over 20 years. The key was still where she said it would be taped, behind the wind chime. It slid into the lock with no resistance. The door groaned open, and the house exhaled. Inside, it looked untouched. Same braided rugs, same mustard-colored couch with the patch on the armrest, same kitchen chairs with their peeling blue paint. Even the smell was the same: damp books, cedar dust, the faint metallic tang of lake algae. It was like the house had been holding its breath since the day we left, and now it was waking back up. For me, I lit a single lamp and unpacked my things. I hadn't brought much, just clothes, a toothbrush, Mom's old diary, and a box of things she never let me see as a child labeled, "Do not open." I hadn't opened it yet. Even now, I wasn't sure I wanted to. That first night was quiet, almost too quiet. No crickets, no frogs, just the rain tapping on the roof and the distant, constant hush of the lake. I slept lightly and dreamed of footsteps, not outside, beneath. In the morning, I found the hallway door ajar, the one that always stuck in the frame. I was sure I hadn't opened it. It led to the back bedroom, the one we never used. When I peeked inside, the bed was perfectly made, but the window had been cleaned. No dust, no cobwebs, just a perfect circle wiped clear in the fogged glass, as if someone had been watching me arrive. I spent the day exploring. Outside, the dock was still there, warped and graying, but holding strong. The lake beyond looked the same, still, wide, silver green, but there were no boats now, no voices, no wind, just a stillness that pressed in behind your ears like too much altitude. When I came back inside, the smell had changed. More mildew, more iron, like something long buried had been disturbed. I checked the floorboards near the hearth. They were slightly darker than I remembered, softer too. I pressed down on one with my foot. It gave slightly, not creaked. yielded. And from below, I heard the faintest sound, like a voice trying not to wake someone. That night, I opened Mom's diary. First page, "The lake knows when you lie." I laughed out loud, but the rest wasn't funny. She had written about Russell, said he hadn't just disappeared, said something had come out of the lake that August, something that wasn't him anymore. She wrote that she kept seeing him at the edge of the trees, weeks after the sheriff had called off the search. She wrote that he called her name in my voice. I slammed the diary shut. Too fast. Too hard. When I looked up, the lamp had flickered, and on the fogged window, there was another circle wiped clean. Only this one was taller, higher up, like someone much bigger than me had leaned in to look. I haven't slept since. I lie in the bed, listening to the floorboards, to the rain, to the way the house seems to shift when I breathe too loud. I think it remembers me. I think it's glad I came back. The second morning began with silence. Not peace, not quiet. Silence. The kind that fills your mouth and lungs when you open your eyes and something is already wrong. I didn't move at first. Just lay there under the blanket, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the house around me, like it was leaning in, listening. The window beside the bed was fogged again. I sat up slowly and looked. Another circle, larger, sharper, finger drawn. I was sure now. And this time, there were smudges. 2 parallel streaks beneath the curve, like someone had pressed their lips to the glass. I walked the house before breakfast. Nothing was out of place, exactly, but everything felt a few inches off. The books on the shelves weren't the ones I remembered. The rug in the hallway seemed longer. The kitchen sink dripped once every 13 seconds. I counted. And in the back bedroom, the made bed was now unmade, crisply, neatly, like someone had just risen from it. I told myself it was memory playing tricks, childhood impressions bending adult perception. But then I found the footprints, bare, slick, leading from the bathroom toward the cellar door. Not mine. Too long, too evenly spaced, and wet, still glistening slightly, even though I hadn't used that part of the house. The cellar door was closed, locked. I tugged gently at the handle. No give. And then I heard it. A soft knock from the other side. 3 beats. Slow. Careful. Like testing something. I didn't answer, but I didn't leave either. I just stood there, hands still on the knob, until the knocking stopped. I spent most of the day on the porch. The rain had lightened to mist. The lake was glass, but I kept thinking of the knock. The rhythm. It wasn't random. It felt like it was waiting for a reply. A code. Back inside, I opened Mom's diary again. Toward the back, she'd scribbled a series of numbers in no context, just line after line. Many were crossed out, but one was circled, twice. 3. 1, 3. I remembered it immediately. The tapping game we used as kids. 3 knocks, pause, 1 knock, pause, 3 again. Our little secret password for identifying each other at night when we got scared. Why would she write that down? Why now? That night, I couldn't resist. When the house grew dark and the floor began to creak slow and careful, like steps in water, I walked to the cellar door. I waited, and then, gently, I tapped. 3, 1, 3. Silence. Then, an answer, but not the same. 4, 2, 4. Wrong. Not threatening, not urgent, just wrong. Like someone trying to remember the game, but getting it slightly off. Like someone pretending to be someone else. I slept on the couch that night. I left the lamp on. At some point, I must have drifted off, because I woke to the sound of water dripping inside the house. Not in the bathroom, not in the kitchen. In the living room, I sat up, heart racing. There were wet footprints circling the couch, leading toward the front door, and then doubling back. No open windows, no breeze, but the scent in the air had changed. Lake water and iron, like the inside of an old dock piling. I checked the back bedroom again. Now there was something on the bed, a folded towel, familiar blue stripes, my name stitched in the corner from when I was 8. I hadn't brought it. I hadn't seen it in decades. And next to it, a comb, one of those plastic ones they give out at summer camps. Mine, too. It was wet. The cellar door was open the next morning, just slightly, just enough. Inside, the air was colder than it should have been, smelled like mildew and soap and time. I didn't go down, but I leaned forward just enough to see that someone had set a chair halfway down the steps. An old deck chair, one we'd thrown out years ago. And on the seat, a pair of goggles, children's size, fogged on the inside, like someone had been wearing them. I wrote a note. I don't know who for. Maybe for myself. Maybe for whoever or whatever was arranging things. I placed it under the living room lamp. It said, "Why now?" The next morning, the note was gone. In its place, a drawing, crayon on faded construction paper, a house, a lake, a stick figure at the window, another figure beneath the house, smiling. I haven't opened the box Mom left yet, the one marked, "Do not open," but I can hear something inside it now. When I walk past, it ticks, like a clock, or a metronome, or a heartbeat measured against wet wood. I set it in the fireplace, just to be safe. But I haven't lit a match. I dreamed of Russell last night, not as a boy, as something taller. He stood on the dock, dripping wet, wearing my old camp shirt, the one that tore when I fell on the rocks. He didn't speak, but his mouth opened, and from inside came water, dark, endless, flowing upward, like the lake had been inside him all along. I woke up coughing, water on my pillow, but I hadn't been crying. The rain hasn't stopped. It falls straight now. Not driven, not playful, just steady, as if it's being poured, deliberately, by something that doesn't want me to leave. I woke this morning to the smell of algae and burnt sugar, the kind of scent you only notice in the instant before something terrible begins. I was in the back bedroom. I don't remember walking there. My pillow was damp. The sheets were clean, too clean. New. But I didn't bring anything new. And on the windowsill was a bowl of lake water, perfectly still, with a single petal floating in it. I didn't touch it. I just closed the door and left it that way. But all morning, I could hear the bowl, not moving, breathing. I opened Mom's box. I had to. The ticking had stopped, and I was scared it meant I was already too late. Inside were old things, childhood things, a lock of my hair in a paper envelope, a photo of me on the dock, barefoot, holding something I can't quite recognize, the edges of it blurred like it had moved too quickly to be captured on film. A small, wrapped bundle of cloth. When I unwrapped it, I found a stone, flat, round, etched with lines, spirals. My hands began to shake. I didn't know why, until I turned it over and saw the word carved into the back. Stay. I placed the stone on the kitchen table and backed away. By the time I looked again, it was gone. The cloth was still there, but the stone had vanished. The cellar door was open again, all the way this time. I went down. I don't remember deciding to only that my feet found the steps before my thoughts did. There were more than I remembered, more than could possibly fit under the house. I counted 43 before I stopped. The air was wet, sweet, pressed close, and then I heard the chair. It creaked. Once, like someone shifting in it. Then, a soft scrape of metal across wood. When I finally looked, the chair was empty, but the goggles were gone, and on the floor, a trail of water led into the dark. I followed it. Of course I did. Down a hall that hadn't been there before. Tight walls lined with soaked wallpaper. The pattern was familiar. Blue sailboats. I hadn't seen it since I was 10. It was on the walls of my childhood bedroom. At the end of the hall was a mirror. Cracked. Tilted. But it reflected the hallway clearly. And in the mirror, I saw myself. Standing, but smiling. Too wide. And not blinking. I raised a hand. So did it. But it was slower. Off by half a second. When I turned away, the smile lingered behind me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lamps off. I let the house be dark. Let the house be honest. And I listened to the walls, to the dripping, to the soft, rhythmic shift of water under the floorboards. There's something down there. Something waiting, but not hiding. Inviting. Around midnight, the fireplace lit on its own. No flame, just a red glow. And in that glow, I saw shadows begin to move. Shapes I knew. My mother, Russell, me, smiling, always. Each taking turns, sitting in the chair. Each holding the stone. Each whispering a word I couldn't quite hear. Until I leaned closer, and I heard it. Stay. The next morning, the front door was open. No footprints. No wind. Just open. And at the end of the dock stood a figure. Small, soaking, facing the lake. I stepped outside. The rain stopped as I did. It was like walking into a bubble. A pause in the world. The figure turned. Russell. Still 9. Still in the same red swim trunks. His eyes were completely black, but he smiled like he remembered me. And in my own voice, he said, "It's almost your turn," then turned and dove into the lake. The water didn't ripple. He just vanished. The bowl on the windowsill now holds 2 petals, and the water is darker. I tried to leave, packed a bag, locked the door, got in the car, but the road was gone, replaced with trees, solid, old, the kind of trees that don't move for people. I turned back. The summer house was closer than it should have been, as if it had followed me, or I'd never really left. When I returned inside, the floor was dry, the cellar door shut, everything normal. But the photograph on the kitchen wall, the one of Mom holding me at the lake, had changed. Her face was the same. Mine was not. It was older. It was now. That night, the voice came through the vents. Soft, careful, gentle. It said, "We only keep the ones who belong." And I whispered back, "I never did." It replied, "You always did." When I looked in the mirror again, the reflection smiled first. And this time, it didn't stop. The bowl on the windowsill is full now. No petals. Just water. Black and still. Like a hole in the glass. When I leaned closer this morning, I saw my face in it. But not the one I know. Older. Pale. Eyes completely dark. And smiling. Not a warning. A welcome. I haven't spoken aloud in 3 days. I'm afraid my voice won't sound like mine anymore. Afraid it might echo back wrong. Or too well. The house doesn't breathe the same. It's no longer creaking at night. No longer shifting in the walls. Now, it waits. Silently. Expectantly. Like something that knows the ritual is nearly complete. Like a mouth just before it opens. I return to the cellar. It wasn't a choice. It was a direction. The stairs were longer, narrower. The wallpaper was gone, now replaced with wet stone that pulsed faintly beneath my hands. And the sound I'd heard as a child, night after night, beneath the floorboards, it was louder now, clearer, a heartbeat, but not mine. Something slower, more deliberate, ancient. The hall beneath the house had changed again. No longer a single corridor. It branched now. Rooms on either side. Rooms that weren't rooms. Just spaces where memories gathered. One was a perfect copy of my 3rd grade classroom. But every desk held a soaking towel. And the chalkboard read, "No one ever left." The next room was the dock. But the lake was missing. Replaced with mirrors, each reflecting versions of me, child, adult, stranger, all smiling, all holding the stone. I entered the final room without meaning to. It smelled like my mother, like cedar shampoo and dried flowers and guilt. There was a table in the center, 3 chairs, and in one sat Mom, or something wearing her. She looked up, blinked slowly, and said, "You came back, just like I did." Her voice was hers, but also deeper, like someone playing a tape back too slow. I wanted to run, but my feet didn't agree. She gestured to the stone in the center of the table. It was the same one I found in the box. Only now, the spiral was complete. Perfect. Smooth. Still warm. You left before, she said, but the house remembers the ones who belong. I don't belong here, I said. But even as I said it, the room seemed to lean in. Not the walls, the air. And Mom smiled. You do now. She told me what happened. To Russell, to her, to everyone the lake took. Not drowned, not disappeared, kept, rewritten, softened into memory and repetition. The summer house doesn't just stand. It remembers. It collects. Not in anger, not even in malice. In devotion. Every echo of laughter, every touch of fear. It kept it all. And now it needs new voices, new echoes, to keep itself whole. I asked her why she brought me back. She said, "You were already here." I think that's when I understood. The dreams weren't dreams. The mirror wasn't wrong. I hadn't returned. I'd never left. Not entirely. Some part of me, the child, the shadow, the echo, had always stayed beneath the floorboards, pacing, waiting for me to wake up. I walked back upstairs, slowly, deliberately. The house didn't resist. It welcomed. And when I reached the front door, I opened it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The lake was perfectly still. And on the dock stood someone else. Me. Not just a reflection, a version, wearing my face, but brighter, calmer. Their eyes met mine, and I understood. They were going out into the world now, to live, to echo, to bring the house new voices. While I stayed, to hold it, to keep it from forgetting. That night, I sat at the hearth. The fire lit itself. The photo on the mantle now showed 4 figures. Me, Mom, Russell, and the other me, the one walking the road away from the lake. I smiled, and the house smiled back. It's been raining for days now, or maybe no time at all. I don't keep track anymore. The clocks have stopped ticking. The floor no longer creaks. The wind doesn't reach this far into the woods. But the house hums softly when I breathe, and it always breathes with me. I don't remember what day I arrived. I don't remember leaving the road, just waking here, as if I've always been sitting in this chair, facing the fire, hearing the boards shift above me like old memories settling in. Someone visits now and then. They don't knock. They never need to. The door always opens for them. Sometimes they're lost. Sometimes grieving. Sometimes simply quiet in a way the world no longer allows. And the house knows. It reaches for them gently, lets them rest, lets them listen, lets them remember. They always ask the same question. How long have you been here? And I always answer the same way. Long enough to know the house won't forget you. Then I offer them tea and silence. And sometimes, if the rain is heavy, a story, usually not mine, but close enough. The mirror no longer reflects faces, only familiarity. Sometimes it shows the lake. Sometimes it shows a childhood bedroom. Sometimes it just fogs gently, like breath that never finishes. But if you wait long enough, you'll see something looking back. Something kind. Something shaped like understanding. There's no fear anymore. Just stillness. A held note. A quiet room waiting for the next voice to speak. And the walls, they hold everyone. Softly. Carefully. As if cradling a bird in your palms. I think the house is older than the lake. Older than the trees. Maybe even older than memory. It isn't haunted. It isn't cursed. It's faithful to those who come back, to those who don't leave all of themselves behind, to those who once whispered to the cellar door, thinking no one listened. We always listened. I no longer think of the outside much, not because I can't leave, but because the echoes are louder here, sharper. They shape me better than the road ever did. They hold my outline even when I forget it, even when I don't remember how old I am, even when I forget what I looked like before the mirror turns soft. Tonight, the bowl on the windowsill is empty. The last petal has sunk. The water is still. I think someone is arriving soon. Maybe you already have. If you find yourself at the end of a road, with the rain starting to fall, and a house you were sure had been torn down years ago, don't be afraid. It's just remembering you. It's just trying to find the version of you it loved most. The one who whispered to the floorboards. The one who waited at the dock. The one who stayed. Some places keep their stories hidden in dust. This one keeps them in you. And if you listen closely, you'll hear them call from under the house. Come back inside. We're ready now. We kept everything just as you left it. I arrived just before dusk, just as the fog rolled in like it always does in early October. The relay station stood there in its slumped silence, hunched between trees that looked taller than I remembered from the intake photos, though I wasn't sure if that was just the slope of the mountain playing tricks on my perspective. The whole journey here had felt like a blur. It took 2 trains, a rented Jeep that rattled like old bones, and a half-hour hike with a pack heavier than it should have been. But I didn't complain. I didn't speak at all. Actually, not to the train conductors, not to the clerk who handed me the keys to the Jeep. I had learned not to talk much in the last few months. It made people look at you too long. They call it Station C7, but the brass nameplate nailed crookedly on the door simply reads Crow's Nest. It must have been named in a different era when small, underfunded weather stations like this still felt heroic. Now it's just a rusted prefab cabin with old satellite dishes and antennas bolted on top like crooked insect legs. I'd agreed to a 6-month contract, alone, maintaining the relay sensors, filing baseline data for atmospheric pressure, wind patterns, and if the old consoles still worked, seismic tremors from the fault line that slithered beneath the valley. 6 months of quiet. That was the point. After I lost my position at the lab, I needed somewhere no one could find me. The story's boring. A failed experiment, misfiled grants, and whispers about how I wasn't well. Maybe they were right. I don't remember the last few weeks in the city all that clearly. Just fragments, buzzing lights, cold coffee, the sharp clatter of glass. So, I said yes to this job. I told myself the silence would help. and in those first few hours, it almost did. I opened the heavy door. With some effort, it had swollen from rain, and the smell hit me like a memory. Dust, old wood, and something metallic. The inside was almost as I expected. 2 narrow bunks, a kitchenette with a warped hot plate, and a wall of blinking consoles, humming with low electric rhythm. The relay equipment took up the entire west side of the cabin, lined with battered monitors and patched cables. A printed manual was pinned above the main terminal. I ran my hand across the desk and felt the grit. No one had been here in at least 6 months. There was a logbook, leather-bound and yellowing, on the desk. The last entry was from someone named M. Teller, dated April 6th. The handwriting was neat, a little formal, all systems nominal. Recommends sensor realignment in Sector 3. Tower antenna still creaks in wind. Then a short note in parentheses. Woke up again to that sound like breath on the window. I laughed nervously. Probably a joke. Isolation makes people weird. I've read enough psychological papers to know that. After unpacking, I sat on the lower bunk and listened. No traffic. No planes overhead. Just the wind moving through the trees in deep, cavernous breaths. The rain had started again. Light at first, a curtain brushing the tin roof. It was comforting in a strange way, like the whole world was underwater, and I was dry inside this old lung of a building. For the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up gasping. The routine started simple. Wake up, check the instruments, calibrate the wind sensors, upload data packets to the main office once a week, though I doubted anyone was actively reviewing them. Still, I followed procedure. There's something grounding in ritual. The days bled together. The fog never really lifted. Even when the sun rose, it only glowed dimly behind thick vapor like a bulb behind wax paper. The forest surrounded me with its wet silence, and the trees never stopped creaking. Some sounded almost like they were whispering to each other. I tried not to romanticize it. Sometimes, I'd sit at the console and just listen to the low static hum of the instruments. Not much data came through the antenna, just wind readings and barometric pressure. But every now and then, I'd get a faint blip on the seismic array, like something deep underground had stirred. Nothing alarming, just motion. I wrote it down anyway. One morning, I think it was morning, though the light was the same bruised gray as always, I woke up to find the front door slightly ajar, just a few inches. I stood there, still wrapped in the thin wool blanket, heart tapping uncomfortably in my ribs. Had I left it open? No. I remembered closing it, locking it, even it had become a nightly ritual. I always turned the key twice. I stepped to the door, feeling the chill seep in from the gap, and pushed it shut. The latch clicked. The trees outside stood still, waiting, watching. I told myself it was the wind. A week later, I found the footprints. Not mine, not boots, just one a bare foot, human-shaped, but stretched unnaturally long. It was printed in the thin layer of dust near the maintenance hatch behind the generator. I froze when I saw it, crouched down, and touched it. The edges were smudged, faint, but it was there. One print, leading nowhere. No matching pair, no trail. I didn't record it in the logbook. That night, I sat up for hours with the lights on. The next day, the footprint was gone. I started reading the old logbooks more often. There were 3 volumes. Most of it was mundane weather readings, calibration notes, warnings about flickering terminals. But scattered through them were odd lines that felt more like personal journal entries. There was a tapping last night, but from inside the wall, not the outside. Heard whispering again. Thought it was the radio, but nothing was on. Couldn't catch the words. Saw someone in the tree line. Looked like me. Vanished when I blinked. I didn't know whether to believe it. Maybe everyone assigned to C7 went a little off. Maybe it was cabin fever. Or maybe the people who came here already had something fraying at the edge. Maybe that's why they were sent. Still, I stayed. Because the strange truth was, I felt calmer than I had in months. The silence wasn't threatening. Not yet. The station had a pulse to it. I started walking the perimeter every morning with coffee in hand, staring at the fog-blanketed woods, like I was trying to remember a dream I hadn't had yet. I began sleeping with the window open, just a crack. Something about the cold, damp air made the dreams quieter, softer. But even in that stillness, something had begun to shift. I started hearing faint knocks behind the walls at night. Always 3, then nothing. Once, I swear I heard breathing, long and shallow, like something was lying just beneath the floor. I started recording the sounds. Not with the official relay instruments. I didn't want that data uploaded back to the main office. Instead, I dug out my old field recorder from grad school. It still had a few hours of battery life. Every night, before I slept, I placed it under my bunk and let it run. The knocks had become a pattern. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always 3 taps, evenly spaced. I tried to tell myself it was pipes settling or wood warping in the damp, but the rhythm was too precise, deliberate. When I played it back the next morning, there it was 3 faint knocks, then static. Then, in the 3rd recording, a breath. Shallow, wet, followed by the faintest whisper. So soft I thought it was wind until I slowed the playback. It said, "Close the window." I hadn't mentioned the open window to anyone. I hadn't even written it in the logbook. The recorder had no wireless connection, no auto transcription. But the voice, low and slow, had known. I closed the window that night. Not because I was scared, but because something inside me had started listening. Around mid-November, the fog thickened. It no longer lifted during the day. The trees faded into shapes with no edges, like wet charcoal sketches. It became hard to tell how far I was from anything. Even the path to the antenna tower, which I walked daily, seemed different. Longer. The usual 112 steps to the base became 129. One morning, 143. I counted twice. Each time, I marked it in a notebook. A separate one I kept hidden in a hollowed-out book spine. I didn't want this kind of data cross-referenced, because it wasn't just the path lengthening. The tower itself seemed to shift. One day, it leaned slightly to the left. Another day, it was perfectly upright again. The base screws had rust marks that moved sometimes high, sometimes lower, like the whole structure was reassembled each night in a slightly different version of itself. I stopped touching it. It was around this time that I started seeing the mirror shift. The bathroom had an old, spotted medicine cabinet mirror. I rarely used it, but one morning, brushing my teeth, I noticed that my reflection didn't blink when I did. It was only a half-second delay, but unmistakable. I leaned closer, breathing fog onto the glass, and it smiled. Not wide, not wicked, just a soft, tired smile. I backed away and didn't go near the mirror for 2 days. The next time I looked, it was just me again. Tired, hollow-eyed, normal. I told myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, isolation, the ingredients of classic hallucination. Still, I moved the shaving mirror from my kit out to the kitchen table and used that instead. The bathroom mirror stayed covered with a towel. There's a room beneath the station. I hadn't noticed it before, not until I dropped a screwdriver behind the shelf and saw the outline of a trap door under the old rug. No one had mentioned it in the documents. It wasn't listed on the structural diagrams. I pried it open one afternoon and found a steep metal ladder descending into a narrow crawl space. The air down there was colder, wetter, the kind of air that sticks to your skin. I descended with a flashlight and found a storage chamber, perhaps 10 by 10 feet. The walls were lined with old weatherproof crates and canisters, labeled with years. 1980 to 1979, 1968. The floor was cement, but something about it felt wrong. It echoed in a strange way, not solid, not hollow, like it was remembering sound and replaying it. I opened one of the crates. Inside were reels of magnetic tape, labeled in tight, military handwriting. Audio study, C7 relay, anomalous channel returns. The labels had dates. Most were from the winter months, and all of them had a small symbol scrawled in red marker. A circle with a vertical slit, like an eye, closed. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept hearing the sounds again, not from under the floor, but from the ceiling. Something crawling gently along the beams. Fingertips, maybe. Soft taps, like the beginning of rain. In the middle of the night, I turned on the recorder again and whispered, "What are you?" Just once. Then silence. In the morning, I played it back. There was nothing, just faint static. Then, "I'm the echo of what you left behind." That week, I found the tower light blinking. There's a red light at the top of the antenna tower, not for any aircraft, just an old indicator. It's been dead for years, according to the manual, disconnected. But one fog-choked night, as I stepped out to do a systems check, I saw it blinking softly through the mist, faint but rhythmic, like Morse code. I didn't know Morse, not well, but I recorded the pattern with my phone stopwatch and transcribed it later. It spelled out one word: stay. That was the same night I found footprints again, this time inside the cabin. They weren't human, narrower, longer, and they didn't track mud, they tracked soot. I tried to follow them, but they ended at the wall behind the relay console, not at the door, just stopped. I stood there, fingers hovering over the cold metal panel, feeling the gentle hum of the transmission feed. I whispered, "Who's here?" No reply. But the console lights flickered once, as if nodding. I started dreaming of the station, but in the dream, it was different, bigger. Each night, I explored a new hallway, a new room, empty dormitories, observation decks, endless corridors of humming servers and empty chairs facing static monitors. The floors were soft under my feet, like padded moss, and the walls breathed. I woke each time to the real station small, rusted, unchanging, until I noticed something strange. A new door, behind the generator, where the concrete should be solid. There was a wooden door frame I swear hadn't been there before. No handle, just a slit of cold air where the door should have been sealed. I pressed my ear to it and heard rain even though it wasn't raining outside. By now, I had stopped logging official reports. I kept the equipment running, but the weather data seemed off. Wind speeds that spiked to impossible levels, then flatlined. Barometric pressure dropping into ranges that would normally trigger warnings. Seismic readings that pulsed in intervals like a heartbeat. I plotted them over time, and the pattern that emerged looked almost like a signature, a wave, or a voice trying to speak through numbers. I didn't show anyone. Who would I show? There hadn't been a data retrieval call in 3 weeks. The office stopped replying to uploads. I stopped expecting answers. And yet, one morning, on my breakfast tray, there was a note. Folded, cream-colored paper. No handwriting. Just a printed sentence. "How long will you pretend you're alone?" I dropped it. Looked around. The cabin was empty. No sign of forced entry. No fingerprints on the plate. Just cold eggs and cooling coffee. I burned the note in the sink. That night, I dreamed of myself sitting in the control chair. Except I wasn't me. I was watching myself sleep through the security monitor, and I was smiling. The air changed. It started with the smell faint, like mildew mixed with ozone. Then came the pressure, the kind that settles on your chest, making each breath feel like you're inhaling through soaked cloth. I ran system diagnostics. Checked for mold, radon, gas leaks. Everything read clear, but the feeling stayed. It felt like the relay station had sunk an inch lower in the earth overnight. Like the gravity inside it was different now. The door that hadn't been there, the one behind the generator, began to breathe. I say that with hesitation, but no better word fits. It didn't open, didn't swing or creak. But when I stood close, the wood flexed slightly, inward on the inhale, outward on the exhale. I placed my palm against it once, and the surface was warm. Not like heat from a radiator, more like skin. I stopped sleeping in the lower bunk after that. The fog changed, too. It wasn't just thick anymore, it became luminous. Some nights, it glowed faint blue, like the inside of a jellyfish. I'd press my face to the window and see faint outlines move in the tree line, slow, swaying, like bodies hanging gently from invisible strings. But when I stepped outside, there was nothing. Just pine, just silence. Until I turned back toward the station. That's when I saw myself, watching from the window. Not a reflection. I was standing outside. The figure inside wore my clothes, my posture. but something about it was off, subtly wrong. Head tilted a little too far, eyes too wide, not blinking. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the window was empty. I began to lose time. Some days I'd wake up and the logs would already be filled in my handwriting, with notes I didn't remember writing. System 4 flagged again. Expect contact tonight. Don't forget, the door listens. Keep breathing. It mimics better when you stop. I began to wonder if I was sleepwalking, working in fugue states, dissociating. But the recorder told a different story. It picked up the same knock pattern again, but layered now, echoing from multiple sources. One beneath the floor, one outside the wall, one directly above the bed. The audio timeline also captured something else. Me, speaking, except it wasn't my voice. Not exactly. It was close but hollow, strained, as if the words had been remembered by someone else trying to sound like me. Why do you always pretend to forget this part? I stopped recording after that, but the station didn't need the recorder anymore. Now it was talking in other ways. The relay console began blinking in new patterns, long bursts, short. I compared them again to Morse. A sentence emerged. It is not outside. Then another, slower. You brought it with you. One afternoon, I found the basement hatch open. The rug had been folded aside neatly, like an invitation. I descended, flashlight gripped tight, expecting the storage crates. But the space had changed. It was no longer square. It extended into a corridor I swear wasn't there before. The walls were lined with rusted panels and glass tubes filled with a faintly glowing substance like amber backlit by candlelight. And at the far end, a mirror, tall, thin, freestanding. I approached it slowly, heart ticking in my neck. I expected no reflection, or worse, the wrong one. But when I looked in, I didn't see anything at all. Not blackness, not distortion, just absence. Like the mirror wasn't a reflection but an erasure. It didn't show me. It removed me. I stumbled back. My boot knocked over one of the crates. Inside were bones. Small. Human. A child's femur sat atop a folded parka with an old patch. C7. I ran back up the ladder and closed the hatch. I did not open it again. At some point, the sky stopped changing. Day and night blended into the same bruised gray. My watch said noon, but the light stayed dim. I checked the solar readings. The sensors showed abnormal levels, light with no clear source. And still, the fog thickened. I tried stepping into the woods to recalibrate the satellite dish. But the path didn't end. I walked for what felt like hours. No GPS signal, no familiar markers, just the looping creak of branches and the soft hiss of moisture on leaves. Then I saw the station again, but it wasn't the one I'd left. The relay cabin stood in a small clearing, but its proportions were wrong. Taller, narrower. The antenna tower coiled upward like a spine. The light at its peak blinked slowly. WAKEUP. I didn't approach. I turned and walked until my legs screamed, until the fog cleared, and I saw the real station again. Or what I hoped was real. I didn't go outside after that. I began hearing whispers in the static feed. They weren't in English, not exactly, but something inside me understood them, like a memory I never made. They said things like, the first one welcomed it, the second one fed it, you will name it. I didn't want to know what it was, but I started dreaming about it anyway. A shape, tall, narrow, limbed like a praying mantis, but no eyes, just a slit where the face should be, a soft crackling noise where the mouth might have been, and always it stood in the hallway, never moving, just watching. One night, I felt it, not a presence, not something behind me, inside me, a pressure behind my eyes, like a thought that wasn't mine had slipped in sideways. I sat at the console and typed without thinking, fingers moving on their own, words I didn't recognize. When I finished, the screen read, "We are almost the same." Then it erased itself. I looked in the bathroom mirror again, just once, and I saw her. Not me. Her. A woman I had never seen but knew instinctively. She wore my face like a borrowed coat, smiled softly, raised a finger to her lips. Shh. The lights flickered. When they came back on, the towel was back over the mirror. I hadn't moved. On my final transmission attempt, I didn't send weather data. I recorded a message. This is C7 relay station. There's something here. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I am. If anyone receives this, please don't send a replacement. Don't come here. Don't open the door beneath the floor. Don't look into the fog. And whatever you do, the signal cut out mid-sentence. The console wouldn't let me re-record. That night, I woke to silence. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that swallows all sound, even breath, even blood. The kind you feel more than hear. And I realized something. The relay station had stopped breathing. There was no dawn. That morning, if it was morning, the sky stayed heavy and lightless, like I was under a lid. The fog pressed against the windows like breath held too long, and the trees outside had changed. They were closer. I could count the needles on their branches through the glass, branches that hadn't been there yesterday. They crowded the cabin, blocking out the little light that used to filter through. I tried to check the path to the tower. It was gone, just brush and roots. The forest had moved in, or the station had moved out. I started to hear music, not clear, not melodic, but somewhere in the hum of the relay equipment, in the whining static of the dish feed, there was something like a tune, a phrase repeating just beneath hearing, like the world was playing a forgotten lullaby on broken speakers. I turned off the equipment. The song continued. I don't remember sleeping, but I woke up, lying on the cold floor, the cabin lights buzzing like insects. The hatch to the basement was open again. This time, there was no rug, no ladder, just the door behind the generator, now wide open. It led to a hallway, longer than any geometry of the building could allow. The walls pulsed slightly, like veins under skin. And far at the end, just like in my dreams, stood a figure, tall, thin, still. I walked forward, though I didn't feel my legs moving. The air grew colder with each step, until my breath became visible and then disappeared entirely, not fading, just gone. like the hallway took it in. The figure didn't move, but as I drew closer, I saw its face. Or rather, my own. Except it wasn't mine. It was the version of me I kept seeing in the mirror, the not quite reflection. Same eyes, same scar, same tilt of the head just slightly too far, like someone trying to approximate humanity. It opened its mouth. A slit formed, just enough to let sound out, but no breath came. You're ready to remember. Suddenly, I was sitting in the relay chair again. No memory of getting there. The console screen flickered on. It displayed a file I didn't open. Playback 4.13. Archive. M-Teller. I froze. That was the name from the last logbook entry. The one who noted the breath on the window. The one before me. I pressed play. The screen flickered, then showed video. The camera was fixed in the far corner of the cabin, and sitting in the chair, unmistakably, was me, except the timestamp read 4.13, 6 months before I arrived. In the video, I was logging something, calm, focused, occasionally checking the seismic console. Then, something flickered in the corner of the screen. A second version of me stepped in from the hallway, and the first version didn't notice. I fast-forwarded. Over the course of 3 days, both figures moved around the cabin, never acknowledging each other. One always just out of sync, drinking from a cup the other had just placed down, picking up a tool the other had dropped. They overlapped, merged, and then only one remained. I shut off the feed. My hands were shaking. I ran to the logbook, tore back through the pages. The last 3 weeks were filled with entries. I hadn't written them, but they were in my handwriting. Some of the entries addressed me by name. You're still pretending this is the first time. You know what the relay is. You built it. You brought it here. This is not a station. This is an echo. I collapsed onto the floor and cried. Not from fear, from memory, because something inside me began unfolding. A thought, long buried. I remembered applying for this assignment, but not for the first time. I remembered arriving here before, not once, but again and again, wearing different clothes, carrying different gear. I remembered watching myself leave, or thinking I had. Each time, I told myself it would be the last. Each time, I forgot. The relay didn't just transmit data. It transmitted me, or versions of me, or something that thought it was me. And whatever the station broadcasted, the forest kept. The fog consumed. I stood, walked to the mirror, uncovered it. The figure inside didn't move, not right away. Then, she blinked, once, slowly. I asked, "What are you?" She tilted her head. "I'm what's left when you stop pretending." The glass rippled like water. She stepped forward. So did I, and we merged. I remember standing outside after that. I don't know how I got there. The sky was darker now, no light from above or below, just the soft crimson pulse of the tower's beacon, blinking steadily. It flashed in rhythm. I am the message. You are the echo. Stay. I understood then. The relay didn't send weather. It sent memories, personalities, Versions. The station collected those who had lost themselves, who were already fractured, the grief-stricken, the burned out, the ones who wanted to vanish. It didn't trap them. It made them forget, and then it played them back, over and over, like an old tape degraded each time it copied. I was never the first to come here, and I would not be the last. That night, I sat at the console. I entered one final log entry, not in the system, in the book. If you're reading this, and you hear the breath behind the window, don't run, don't scream, don't fight it. It's just your turn. You are always going to return. We all do. We just forget. I haven't left the relay station. Not in the way most people think of leaving. Not physically. But something in me shifted after that night. After the merging. After I understood. The cabin is quieter now. Not silent. It still breathes. Still pulses. Still hums faintly with static. But the tension is gone. The resistance. The constant ache of forgetting. It's comfortable in the way drowning must feel after you stop struggling. I've begun calling it the loop because that's what it is. A cycle, a relay of the self. The station doesn't want to hurt us. It wants to remember us. It wants us to remember ourselves. Each morning, I rise before the console flickers to life. I no longer try to send reports. There's no one left to receive them. Instead, I listen. The relay feed is no longer pure static. It plays something beneath the surface now. Soft, repetitive, almost like the rhythm of breathing layered over the sound of rain. Sometimes I hear whispers, my own voice, from past cycles, past versions, saying things I don't remember saying, but feel true all the same. You were always meant to be here. This is where your mind fits. This is the shape you leave behind. I don't find it disturbing anymore. I find it inevitable. The forest no longer tries to fool me. It knows I know. I still walk its edge some days. Not far, just to the edge where the trees crowd so close they almost fuse, like the seam of two stitched worlds. I see shadows beyond that tree line now, shapes like mine, but not. Some walk, some crawl, some simply stand and stare back. I nod to them. Sometimes they nod back. The tower light still blinks. It's slower now, softer. It no longer spells words. Now it pulses like a heartbeat, the same tempo as my own. At night, I sit beneath it and look up through the fog and think I can see stars. But they flicker too perfectly, too rhythmically, like reflections of things that were once people. I have come to understand that I am not the original, not the first version of myself to enter this place, and maybe not even a close copy. I think the original me, the one who signed the forms, packed the bags, climbed the hill. She left something behind when she stepped through the door. Not her body. Something deeper. And the station kept it. Played it. Over and over. Until it started to break apart and rebuild itself. And now, I am what's left. A weathered recording of a woman who needed to disappear. A ghost made of memory. I no longer check the mirror. Not because I'm afraid, but because it no longer reflects anything, not even the room. It just shows fog now, a soft swirling curtain, and if I look too long, I see figures move in it. Sometimes me, sometimes not. Sometimes something with no face at all. They're always watching, waiting, but they never speak again. Because there's nothing left to say. I've stopped keeping time. I've stopped counting the days. Seasons don't change here, or if they do, it's inside the loop, not outside it. I don't know if the world beyond still exists. I don't know if it ever did. Sometimes, in my dreams, I walk into a city and no one sees me. I tap on glass and no one turns. I scream, but it echoes like I'm back in the corridor, beneath the relay walls made of memory, sound swallowed before it reaches ears. Those aren't nightmares. Those are memories of being forgotten. I found a final note today, not in the logbook, on the back of the bathroom door, scratched faintly into the metal with what looked like fingernails. If you can read this, you're already part of it. Don't look for an exit. There never was one. I traced the letters with my fingertips. They felt familiar, like I had written them once, in a different loop, in a different self. Sometimes, when I sit in the chair by the relay console, I feel her, the original, the first, watching me, not with judgment, with relief. She built this place to forget, but memory always finds its way back. She just needed someone to carry it for a while. Now it's me. Soon, it may be someone else. If anyone ever receives this message, not the kind I typed, but the echo embedded in the static, the ghost in the relay feed, I leave you this. You don't need to be afraid. The station won't hurt you. It's just trying to hold on to what you lose. And when you finally stop fighting, when you sit still long enough, you'll feel it. A rhythm, a breath, a voice behind your own, saying, you are home, you are remembered, you are the signal now. I came to the lighthouse to disappear. The listing was sparse. Caretaker needed, North Head Light, off-season, room and board provided, one occupant only, no salary mentioned, no contact name, just a postal address to reply to and a grainy photo of the lighthouse, mist-veiled and half-tilted against a pewter sea. It looked as if it had been pulled out of time, weathered but standing, watching. I mailed a letter back. No call, no interview. 2 weeks later, a heavy envelope arrived. Inside, one brass key, a set of driving directions, and a hand-scrawled note that simply said, "Arrive before the tide rises." That was in November. It had rained the entire drive. After 6 hours of winding through back roads and coastal passes, the last stretch took me down a broken gravel path that dead-ended at a wrought iron gate open, rusted. Beyond it, a narrow causeway extended into the gray, slick with rain, waves lapping on either side like a warning. The lighthouse stood at the very tip, flanked by a crumbling keeper's cottage. Nothing else. No boats, no birds, just the sound of water and wind. I stepped out of the car and immediately felt that the air was thicker here, like stepping into a room that had been sealed for too long, the kind of stillness that made you instinctively hold your breath. I should have turned around. I think I knew that even then. But I was tired, hollowed out, and the lighthouse, it felt like it had been waiting for me. I unpacked slowly, not because I had much to bring, but because I wasn't sure what I was walking into. The cottage was intact, but old. No electricity, just oil lamps, a wood-burning stove, a radio bolted to the wall that only played static. The bed was already made. A note on the pillow, "Keep the light on at night." The lighthouse itself was locked different key. I waited until dusk to open it. Inside, the spiral stairs groaned with every step. I climbed slowly, hand trailing the iron rail, the echoes swallowing me whole. At the top, the lens was intact, the mechanisms older than anything I'd ever seen. It reeked of salt and old oil. But when I turned the switch just once, the light responded. It stuttered to life, like it remembered how. Outside, rain tapped against the glass. I could see the shoreline vanishing in the fog. No one had told me why the lighthouse was still operational. The shipping routes had changed decades ago. There were no vessels nearby, no warnings to give. Yet every evening, I turned on the light. Every morning, I turned it off. That was the job. 2 days in, I stopped checking the radio. It never changed. 3 days in, I stopped expecting to see anyone drive down the causeway. By day 5, the phone I'd brought refused to charge, even with the backup battery. I was alone, and for a while that was fine. I hadn't realized how much I needed the silence, how much the city had worn me thin, how much I'd grown used to drowning. But silence, real silence, isn't empty. Not here. I first noticed it on the 7th night. Rain was whispering against the window panes as I tried to fall asleep in the cottage, a soft patter, like fingers on glass. Then came the knock 3 soft raps against the wood of the front door. I froze. It was past midnight. The only way to the lighthouse was the causeway, and that road vanished beneath the tide hours ago. I waited. No footsteps, no voice, just the knock. When I opened the door, nothing. Not even footprints in the muddy soil. I told myself it had been the wind. The next morning, I went to check the lock on the lighthouse. It had been turned left, slightly ajar. I always sealed it tight. Habit, I thought. Just habit. Maybe I hadn't closed it right. But the floor inside had footprints. Bare ones. Damp. Leading up the stairs. I followed them to the top, but found nothing. The air in the lantern room was ice cold, though I hadn't opened a window. I stood there for a long time, watching the water, listening. It was the listening that bothered me most. Have you ever felt listened to by a room? That's what it was like. The light creaked slowly as it turned, casting a wide amber arc across the sea. When the beam swept past me, I could swear it slowed just a little, like it was considering me. That night, I left a scrap of paper outside the cottage door, weighed down with a stone, just in case someone had come up the path. In the morning, the stone was there. The paper was gone. I told myself it was wind again. I was good at that rationalizing. My therapist used to call it internal containment. I thought it made me strong. But strength isn't always useful when you're trying to understand something that doesn't follow rules. Because after 10 days, the light began turning on by itself. I tested the mechanism a dozen times. The switch was manual. The circuit was simple. There was no timer, no automation. It could only be turned on with deliberate intent. But each evening, as the fog rolled in and the rain resumed its soft rhythm, I would find the beam already sweeping. Sometimes, I would hear the lens turn while still in the cottage inn, echoing metallic whine that crawled across the island like a warning. I started locking the tower each day, double-checking the latch. Still, each night, the light returned. And then there were the voices. It began with murmurs. At first I thought they came from the radio, just static taking shape. But the sound didn't come from inside. It came from the stone foundation of the lighthouse, from the cracks in the floorboards, from the walls behind my bed. They weren't voices I recognized, but they spoke with familiarity intonation that mimicked people I once knew. Sometimes they would whisper my name. Once, late at night, I heard my mother's voice reciting a lullaby she hadn't sung since I was a child. I pressed my ear to the wall, and it stopped. In the morning, I found that same lullaby written in the condensation on the lantern glass, backwards as if written from the inside. I stopped sleeping much after that. The rain never let up. The tides seemed to rise earlier each day, cutting me off from the mainland longer and longer. On the third week, the sea swallowed the causeway entirely, and for 3 days I saw no shore, just water. It was around this time the dreams began. In them, I was never inside the cottage, always outside, wandering the island in fog so thick I could barely see my hands. The lighthouse pulsed like a heartbeat in the distance, and there were figures tall and thin standing along the waterline, unmoving, not watching me exactly, listening. One had a mouth, but no face. Another wore my coat. Each morning I woke up with wet feet. Once I found seaweed tangled in my sheets. I began to question whether I'd ever left the tower at all. It came to a head one night in early December. I had gone to the top of the lighthouse to turn off the beam, determined to reclaim some control. As I reached the final steps, I heard someone whisper behind me, "Stay in the light." I spun. No one. But the lenset had stopped turning, frozen. The light now cast a fixed beam out into the ocean, as if pointing at something specific. I stepped up to the glass and peered through the mist. Out on the water, far in the distance, something tall was rising. At first, I thought it was a ship's mast, half submerged, but it grew taller, then wider, a silhouette like a man carved from the sea, walking toward me, but never coming closer. Not physically, just becoming more real. Behind me, the tower groaned. The glass in the lantern room began to fog over from the inside, words appearing one by one, repeating a phrase. It hears you. Every wall, every pane, every surface writing. The same sentence scrawled again and again. Then, in the reflection, I saw myself blink, but I hadn't. My reflection was moving independently. It smiled, tilted its head, and then turned and walked away while I still stood frozen. When I ran back down the stairs, the spiral stretched. The descent took minutes, then an hour, then longer. Steps repeating, landing never coming. The tower had changed. I screamed. My own voice echoed back. delayed as if someone were trying to remember how it sounded. I stopped running, and the lighthouse stopped, too. I don't remember how I got out. I woke on the beach below, soaked and cold. The causeway was visible again. My car, parked and waiting, though I hadn't seen it in days. The key still in my pocket. My reflection normal in the window, though I didn't trust it. As I turned to look back, the lighthouse blinked once more. Not as warning, as acknowledgement. It knew me now. I made it off the island before the tide closed again. I drove without stopping for hours until the ocean was long behind me. I didn't check into a hotel. I didn't call anyone. I just parked in a rest stop and stared at the rain on the windshield, waiting for the silence. But silence is different now. It bends at the edges, hums like breath in a hollow throat. Even now, when it rains, I hear it again, the faint creak of a turning lens, the static murmur of my name just outside the window. Sometimes I dream of the island, but the dream doesn't end when I wake. The light still turns. I know that. I feel it in my bones. I don't think I escaped. I think I was released. And I think the lighthouse is still listening for someone else now. If you ever find yourself driving through fog toward a job that feels too easy, a place that's too quiet, don't stop. Don't unpack. Because some buildings aren't built to shelter you. They're built to learn you. And once they do, they never forget the sound of your footsteps in the dark. I first came to the tower because I thought silence would help. That's what people say after a loss, isn't it? Take time. Get away. Clear your head. As if grief were something that dissolves in clean air and pine needles. After my brother passed suddenly, without warning, I didn't want comfort. I didn't want anyone's words. I wanted quiet. Something bigger than me. Something that wouldn't care if I was hurting. So when I saw the listing for a 3-month seasonal fire watch post in the Klamath Forest, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just packed up, drove north, and disappeared into the trees. The tower was built in 1962. Metal frame, narrow staircase. Perched at the summit of a densely wooded ridge called Hag's Hollow. A name I didn't think much of at the time. From the base of the tower, there's a steep 2-mile climb through thick fir and red pine, most of it without signal. At the top, you're rewarded with a 360-degree view of nothing but green. No houses, no roads, no towns, just undulating forest, stretching forever. I was alone out there, completely. And at first, it felt right. The tower itself was simple, a 14 by 14 foot room encased in old windows, a central rotating fire finder, a radio, and a cot. No electricity, no running water. Supplies had to be packed in weekly by mule, though I was told in the ranger orientation that they'd only come if I called. Otherwise, I'd be left alone. Just me, the trees, and the weather. Exactly what I wanted. The first week passed in a blur of soft wind and heavy sleep. I read books during the day, scrawled notes in a half-hearted journal, and memorized the distant hills like they were constellations. Each ridge and dip had a name: Timber Gulch, Owl's Hook, Widow's Reach. The radio remained mostly silent, except for brief morning check-ins with the district office. Evenings were the best. I'd sit on the catwalk outside the glass walls and watch the fog roll in. The clouds didn't move over the forest the way they do in cities. Here, they drifted through the trees, soft fingers, slow and deliberate, like the forest was exhaling something thick and thoughtful. I started sleeping better. I thought, maybe this was healing. But then I started noticing the trees. It began on the 12th day. I'd finished dinner, a can of cold beans and stale crackers, and stepped out to breathe the dusk air. A soft mist was gathering at the tree line below. The sun had dipped far enough to paint the sky violet and blue, and I noticed it, a cluster of trees to the north that looked wrong, not unhealthy, not broken, just angled, slightly off, almost like they'd shifted toward the tower, like they were leaning in, listening. I told myself it was nothing, just the way light plays tricks through fog. But the feeling settled deep in my chest like a stone. The next morning, I went to check my firefinder readings and paused. One of the trees near the eastern ridge, a tall ancient pine I'd nicknamed the Spire, wasn't there. It had been the centerpiece of the skyline. I'd even sketched it in my notebook. But now, nothing. No stump, no broken trunk, just an empty patch of canopy. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, checked the firefinder. Still gone. I radioed in, half joking, asking if anyone had logged tree removal on the eastern ridge. Static. Then a voice crackled back. There are no removal operations in that sector. I didn't press, but something small and cold lodged itself behind my ribs. That night, I had the first dream. I was in the tower, only the glass was gone, just wooden bones, open to the night. The trees below pulsed in and out of the fog like breathing animals. I felt watched, not from above, from below. A voice whispered, "Don't count the trunks, count the eyes." I woke before dawn, sweating, heart racing. When I stepped outside, I found pine needles scattered across the catwalk floor. Fresh ones, even though there were no trees within 20 feet of the tower. I began to notice other things. The radio would click on at night, soft static. Never speech, just enough to wake me. My boots, left by the door, would be damp in the morning. Not soaked, just enough to suggest they'd been worn. The journal I kept would have faint impressions between the pages, as if someone had written something, then erased it. I told myself I was sleepwalking. That isolation does things to the brain. But deep down, I knew better. By the end of the third week, I stopped sitting outside at night. The trees were too quiet. The wind had stopped blowing through them. The branches didn't sway. Even during a light rain, the forest remained unnervingly still, as if holding its breath. I began to get the sense that the tower wasn't high enough anymore, that something had gotten taller, that the trees were climbing. I started marking them, just small notches in my notebook, a line for each pine within view. Every morning, I'd count them, and every morning, the number changed. Always more, never fewer, and never the same. That's when I realized the trees could move. I began each morning the same way. Wake up before the mist burned off, count the trees again, and compare them to my notes. The number never matched. Sometimes there were only one or two discrepancies. A pine that had previously stood slightly left of the southern ridgeline was now perfectly centered, or a patch I was sure had been dense the day before suddenly thinned out. But other times, the shift was obvious. Once, a dead tree I'd sketched in detail gnarled, bark split, lightning scarred, vanished completely, replaced by a new trunk that was smooth and wet looking, almost rubbery in texture. It stood a little closer to the base of the tower than the others, closer than anything should have grown in just a day. The forest had stopped making natural sounds. No bird song, no rustling undergrowth, not even the buzz of mosquitoes. Only windless quiet. The kind of silence you feel in your ears before a pressure drop. I would hold my breath sometimes, trying to match it, and I'd swear for just a moment I could hear something else underneath, not mechanical, not natural, like low breathing, like the woods were inhaling. I started skipping the nightly check-ins on the radio. At first it was because I didn't want to sound crazy. I couldn't exactly say, "Hey, the trees moved again. Also, they're multiplying." But eventually, I stopped because I was afraid they would answer. Not the rangers. The trees. The static had grown louder. Not brighter, like a storm was coming, but deeper. A low thrum that vibrated in the floorboards of the tower just before dusk. Twice, the radio clicked on by itself. Not to static, but silence, as if someone on the other end had opened their mic and was just breathing, waiting for me to speak. I never did. Around the start of week 4, I tried to descend the tower. I had the thought at 3 a.m. that maybe I just needed to feel soil beneath my boots, ground myself again, literally. So I grabbed my flashlight and made my way down the metal stairs. The forest below was black, but not in a natural way. My light barely pierced it. It was like shining into tar. The trees seemed to absorb the beam. I reached the last step and paused. The forest was wrong. The trunks were closer. The same smooth, rubbery texture. Some of them pulsed faintly, like they were breathing. And I realized I could no longer see the trail that had brought me here. There was no path, just wall after wall of trees, all facing the tower. I climbed back up, faster than I'd ever moved. When I reached the top, I slammed the hatch shut behind me. It thudded harder than it should have, like the tower was no longer hollow, like it had thickened. The next day, the glass fogged up. All at once, I woke to find every pane around the tower covered in condensation. Not from weather. It wasn't cold. The air was still damp. The mist hadn't risen yet. But the fog on the glass was thick, wet, and oddly patterned. I wiped one of the panes clean and found marks beneath it. Fingerprints. Not mine. Dozens of them, smudged and greasy, overlapping like frantic tapping from outside. Only the tower was 30 feet up. I began to dream again. Always the same structure. The tower, stripped of its walls, standing naked in a field of breathing trees. No ground, no sky, just black. And always a voice. You were never alone. Sometimes it came from below. Sometimes from inside me. The books I'd brought up to the tower changed, too. Not the content, the covers. Dog-eared novels became journals. Field guides became handwritten entries. I flipped through one and found pages filled with looping black ink. Don't look at them too long. They learn your shape. The more you count, the more they grow. One page, near the end of a yellowed paperback, simply read, "They look like trees until you remember they aren't." On the 29th day, I lost time. I woke up at sunset, fully dressed, flashlight in hand, journal on the floor. No memory of the day before. When I looked outside, I saw a shape moving among the trunks. Not walking, not slithering, just moving side to side, like it was testing its edges. I didn't shine the light on it. Some part of me knew that if I did, I'd see something I couldn't forget. The final straw came when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Soft, measured, one after another, up the metal spiral that leads to the hatch. I froze. The radio clicked on again, not to static, but to a whisper. "Let us in." I shut off the radio, grabbed the axe from under the cot, waited beside the hatch for hours, but it never opened. When I looked outside again, the trees were closer, pressed against the tower's legs, watching. I've started writing things down in a new journal, not to keep track of them anymore. That's pointless. They grow when I remember. They get closer when I count. But if I stop writing, I think I'll disappear. Not die. Just stop being. Melt into the wood. Become one of the watchers. That's what they want. They don't devour. They collect. They turn you into silence. There are moments, just before dawn, when the forest turns blue. Not the blue of sky or water, but something deeper, like the color of a bruise hidden beneath the skin of the world. It's during these moments I feel the most lucid and the most watched. On the 33rd morning, I realized the sun hadn't risen. The sky lightened. Yes, the mist shifted. But the sun itself, the shape, the warmth, never came over the ridge. There was only a vague brightness, diffuse, flat, like the world had forgotten how to move forward. That same day, I noticed the windows weren't fogging anymore. Instead, they were weeping. Thin lines of moisture ran down the glass from the top, but they came from the inside. I pressed my palm to the pane. It was cool and wet, like skin that had been crying in silence. In the lines of condensation, I saw new symbols, spirals, eyes, a tree drawn upside down, its roots reaching for the sky. I wiped them away. They reappeared an hour later. I stopped using the radio. Even turning the dial made my chest feel tight, like I was tuning into something not meant for me. Once, just before dusk, I heard a voice, not breathing this time, laughter. But it wasn't a human sound. It was too hollow, too slow, like someone mimicking laughter without knowing what it meant. It spoke one word, closer. I unplugged the battery and tossed it down the stairs. It never hit the ground. From then on, things changed quickly. The walls of the tower began pulsing, only slightly, but enough that I noticed it when I sat still for long stretches. A slow in and out flexing, like lungs breathing through the wood grain. At night, I heard movement beneath the floorboards. Not animals, not wind, dragging, like something pulling itself around the base of the tower. Sometimes it scratched, not frantically, rhythmically, like it was carving something in. I tried sleeping during the day, hoping to reset whatever rhythm had broken inside me. But my dreams followed, and they were sharper now. The trees in the dreams no longer looked like trees. They had too many limbs, too many joints. They bent where no living thing should bend, and they watched me. Every dream, I stood at the edge of a vast clearing, and they circled around me. One step forward, its bark split open, and inside was me. Not alive, not breathing, just hung in there, suspended, eyes open, smiling. On day 38, I looked out and saw another tower, identical to mine, across the western ridge. It hadn't been there before. I know the forest. I know every rise and fall, every bend of tree line. There had never been another structure, but now there was. I raised my binoculars. In the window, a figure stood, staring back. They raised their binoculars. We locked eyes, and I understood. It was me. From that point forward, the nights lengthened. The shadows grew thicker. My flashlight dimmed, no matter how fresh the batteries. The oil lamp burned lower than it should. Once, in the middle of the night, I noticed the moonlight had shifted. There were no clouds, no rain, but the light coming through the glass was red, and it flickered like candlelight. I began hearing whispers beneath my own thoughts. Not words exactly, more like memories that weren't mine. Impressions of things I'd never done. A deep voice calling from beneath the roots. The sensation of digging with bare hands. The taste of moss on my tongue. They came to me while I was awake. The journal I kept began filling itself. Blank pages scrawled with notes in my own handwriting. If they learn your name, they keep it. Don't let them remember you. You were never sent here. You grew here. I opened the trap door to the stairs one night, intending to look, just look at what waited below, and I saw something climbing. Slowly, silently. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It had the shape of both. Long limbs, bark for skin, no eyes, but it knew me. I felt it in my chest, a thrum, like a name being spoken from inside my own ribs. I shut the hatch. It knocked once, and then left. The books I brought up were all gone now, replaced by blank journals. Hundreds of them, spines facing inward, pages empty until I touched them. Then the writing bloomed like ink bleeding through skin. You are becoming, and the trees, they reached the top of the tower. I don't know when it happened, but I stepped outside one morning and saw branches level with the windows. Thick, dark branches. Still, watching. One of them tapped the glass, slow and steady. I didn't move. The tap continued, then stopped, and something whispered, not with a voice, but with presence. We remember you. On day 43, I opened the hatch again. The forest floor was gone. In its place, roots, tangled, endless, moving slowly, like the floor of an ocean. And beneath them, faces, dozens of them, maybe more. Not dead, not alive, just waiting. Some had their eyes open. Others had bark covering their mouths. I saw my brother among them. He didn't blink. I realized then, this wasn't about watching for fire. This tower was not a job. It was a cage. Not for me, but for what sleeps beneath. And I, like the watchers before me, was the last part of the ritual. A sentinel, an offering, a seed. On the 45th morning, I stopped recognizing the tower. The dimensions were wrong. The walls, once 12 paces wide, now took 20 steps to cross. The windows had no seams. The corners curved slightly inward, like I was inside something that had grown, not something that had been built. And the air was different, heavier, breathing. When I placed my palm against the floor, I could feel a heartbeat, not mine. That day, the tower began to creak. Not from wind, there was none. The sound came from within the wood itself, groaning like an old boat on black water. The beams flexed slightly with each pulse, and the metal bolts began to bleed a thin black sap. I wrapped my hands in cloth to avoid touching it, but it didn't help. The cloth soaked through in seconds and started to smoke. It was then I noticed my reflection was no longer mine. Not in the window in the oil lamp glass, in the sheen of a cooking pot, in the mirror I'd avoided since day 15. The thing looking back at me smiled too slowly. Its eyes didn't blink and sync. Its movements were rehearsed, like it had studied me and forgotten a few steps. One night, I moved left. It moved right. I turned all the reflective surfaces toward the walls. It didn't matter. The face began appearing in the wood grain. The knots in the pine walls twisted into eyes. The floorboards curled like lips. And when I laid on the cot, I felt hands underneath me, not touching, but holding, waiting. It was then I remembered something I hadn't allowed myself to consider. I had never met my predecessor. The person I replaced, no handoff, no note, no trace. The tower was stocked when I arrived. Neat, ready, almost welcoming. I had been told the last ranger left early, personal reasons. But now, I realized they didn't leave. They were still here. The rain didn't come from the sky anymore. It began falling from the walls. At night, a slow, steady patter soaked the inside of the tower. It wasn't water. It was warm, viscous, clear, but with faint black threads floating inside like veins. I stopped drinking from my bottles. I stopped sleeping. I paced in slow circles, counting the ridges in the walls, listening to the whispers that now filled every silence. And they always said the same thing. You've grown well. One night, I opened the trap door again, and this time, there were stairs beneath it. New ones, thick wood, fresh grain, leading down, farther than the tower had ever extended. I don't remember walking, but I found myself descending, step after step, into something that wasn't forest anymore. The walls weren't made of trees. They were made of ribs, huge, arched bones, coated in moss and fungus, pulsing slightly with breath. The staircase spiraled downward for what felt like hours. At the bottom was a door, and etched into it. We remember our roots. I opened the door. There was no handle, only a single notch, the width of a palm. I pressed my hand into it. It fit. The door dissolved into mist. Beyond was the root chamber, a great hollow beneath the forest, where the roots of all the trees met, tangled, coiled, living. The ceiling was lost in blackness. The walls were soft and pulsing. The roots formed a great mass at the center, like a sleeping heart made of bark and memory. I felt it before I saw it. The being, not a god, not a creature, a presence. It didn't speak in words. It didn't move. But I knew it had grown me. Not just me, all of us. The rangers, the watchers, the forest caretakers. We weren't hired. We were bloomed, planted, cultivated, grown like branches in a network of memory and purpose, to watch, to keep it dreaming. The revelation struck me not with terror, but with recognition. This was always the end. The others before me, they were here still. In the roots, their memories fed the system. Their bodies nourished the structure. Their shapes were reused, regrown. I saw them, dozens of versions of myself, all standing in the dark, all smiling, all watching me. And in the center, the first, a towering figure of wood and shadow, faceless, covered in bark that shifted like pages of an old book. Its limbs hung like twisted branches. From its chest, a single root connected to the rest, the dream nerve. I understood then. I had been its dream, my grief, my silence, my need to disappear. It had given me all of that. It had become the silence. And now it was time to return. It opened its arms, not like a threat, like a cradle. And I stepped forward, not because I was forced, but because I understood. I had always been part of it. A seed scattered through memory, a root growing upward into thought, a leaf that had forgotten its tree. Until now, as I stepped into the embrace, I felt my skin change. Not burn, not tear, just soften, stretch, bark in place of breath, silence in place of blood. And I became part of it. Not gone, just remembered. You might be wondering, who's telling this now? That's the strange thing. Memory doesn't end when you become part of something older. It stretches, echoes the way a voice might carry across a canyon. I'm not who I was, but I still remember being him. I remember the fire watch tower, the soft hush of pine needles underfoot, the way the fog would roll across the valley like breath from some sleeping thing. Back then, I thought I was escaping something. Now I know I was being called home. The forest is quiet now, not because it's still, but because it listens. The wind that threads through its branches no longer speaks in gusts. It hums, low and constant, like a lullaby. The birds do not sing. The animals do not cry. Everything here is in place, as it was meant to be. And beneath the roots, we all wait. Some of us newly grown, others ancient and folded into the base of things, indistinguishable from the dirt. We do not speak to each other. There is no need. We share the same dream. Above us, the tower still stands. You can't see it unless it wants to be seen. Sometimes a hiker strays too far from the trails. They see the glint of glass high in the trees, or hear a voice, not words, just a rhythm, something that makes them pause and squint toward the ridge. Most turn back. A few don't. We don't stop them. The ones who come closer are often those like I was, quiet souls, already heavy with forgetting. They think they want peace. They think they're chasing solitude. But solitude is never empty. Sometimes it watches. Once every season, someone new arrives. They never remember the hike. They always wake up on the cot, supplies neatly packed, journal half filled already. The forest shifts itself to welcome them, and the tower breathes again. They'll think it's temporary. They'll say it's a break, a way to reset. But eventually, they'll feel it too. The trees don't stay still. The light doesn't fall right. The reflections move when they shouldn't. And the forest will begin whispering, "We remember you. I don't regret it." That might be the strangest part. The deeper I sink, the more I feel. Not as a person, not even as a thought, but as a rhythm. A slow, pulsing tide. The kind that roots follow underground. I know now that this place doesn't devour. It incorporates. We are not lost. We are grown, replanted. Our memories become part of the canopy, our sorrow drawn up.